Okay. Looks like seeing everybody present, we'll come back to open session. The board met earlier in closed session and took no reportable action. Before we begin our open session, let me just go over a couple of housekeeping issues. These are probably familiar to most as we've done a number of these Zoom meetings, but just in case. There will be opportunity for public comment on every item. If you wish to comment on an item, when we get to that item, I'll ask you to electronically raise your hand. You can do that either by clicking on the raised hand icon in Zoom, which I see a couple people have already done, or by pressing *9 if you're calling in from your phone. We're using a practice where we ask people to get their hands raised on the item they wish to speak of anytime after the item is called and before the first person is finished speaking. So we'll note everyone in the queue when the first person is finished speaking, and then reset the time limit if needed and take it from there. I should have mentioned, by our bylaws, the amount of time each person will get is determined by the number of people who want to speak on a given item. And so that's why it's important that we get a good count before we start going through the queue. And finally, because we're not all together, we'll be doing roll call votes on all items. And as board secretary, Dr. Austin will continue to do the honors on that. So that's our housekeeping. And the next, there it is. And the next item is to approve our agenda. And we have a few items on the agenda. So we've been waiving this on some of the recent meetings, but why don't we do agenda approval? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. I'm sorry, who seconded?
I did.
Thank you. So Mr. Darup and Ms. Bacon-Caswell. Any changes before we move ahead? Okay, so Dr. Austin, can you take the vote on the agenda?
Yeah. Ms. DiBrienza?
Aye, sorry.
It's okay. Ms. Bacon-Caswell?
Aye.
Mr. Dauber?
Aye.
Mr. Darup?
Aye.
Mr. Collins?
And I also vote aye. Okay, and so the first item on our now approved agenda is a report from the superintendent. Dr. Austin, take it away.
Okay, I'm going to start by asking our Deputy Superintendent, Karen Hendricks, to introduce 3 members of our team. While 2 have been on board for a little while, the closure in March fell in the same week. We would have introduced 2 of our high school principals. So we wanted to take a moment to introduce them to everyone as well. So Ms. Hendricks, if you can help me out with some introductions.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Austin. So we did approve our 2 new high school principals on March 17th, and it would have been wonderful to have them step up to the podium at that time and say hello. We didn't have the opportunity. So I'm going to actually introduce them tonight at our board meeting, and they're here to say a few words for us. So let me start by introducing Wendy Stratton, who is our new principal at Gunn High School. Wendy was previously an assistant principal at Palo Alto High School. She came to PAUSD with 5 years of experience as an assistant principal at Tamalpais High School in Mill Valley. Prior to becoming an administrator, she was also an athletic director, a teacher leader, and a teacher at Redwood High School in Larkspur, California. She was also a middle school physical education teacher. Wendy holds a bachelor's degree from Mills College in Oakland, and she has a master's degree from San Francisco State University. She's currently in a doctoral program in organizational leadership at the University of Laverne, and she expects to complete that in 2020. Maybe she can give us an update on that. Ms. Stratton is a national board certified teacher. She received the Golden Belt Teacher of the Year Award in 2014, which is pretty impressive. So her core value for equity really drives her leadership approach. Ms. Stratton's a team player. She has instructional expertise. She's motivated to participate in an inclusive community where students and adults are committed to continuous improvement. In her view, all students learn at high levels when teachers, administrators, and the staff surrounding them behave purposefully to create a culture of high trust that embraces innovation and excellence. Ms. Stratton understands the importance of including multiple perspectives in decision-making processes. I will say she also has a son who's a current senior at one of our high schools. She's just delighted to join our team as the Gunn High School principal, and we are thrilled to have her here. So Wendy Stratton, would you like to say hello?
I would love to. It's a little overdue. I'm thrilled, overjoyed, really. And you're probably all looking at me like, what? Who wants to be a principal of a high school in the middle of a pandemic? Well, I actually do. I really actually do. And I would, this is what my journey has brought me to. And Karen reminds me, you know, sometimes people tell you the things you've done and you're like, oh, I did that. That's right. Oh yeah, I was national board. Oh yeah, teacher of the year. I forgot all that, you know. But I remember all the work that went into all of those little benchmarks to get me here, and it starts to make sense. So I'm so excited. And I will say, working with the parents has been wonderful. Our PTSA, our foundation, our PI parents have been amazing. I've had 3 nights now of freshman parent night, sophomore parent night. Tonight is the junior parent night, and I will be exiting after I introduce myself to meet with them. But it's been phenomenal. I do want to emphasize for a moment, I want to kind of share how excited our staff is. We are going with a theme this year. We're going with Gun Together. And it is such a fit for what really works. You know, we know right now we need to partner more than ever. And that really is what we're doing. And we're not just saying we're doing it. You can feel it. People all feel it. And everybody's saying it takes a village right now. And Gun's doing it. And that's, you know, I'm going to promote Gun up and down, but it's authentic. And I feel it in my heart. I don't want you to feel like I'm doing a pep talk for Gun here. But what I wanted to share before I take up all the airtime, which I could, because I am that excited, is just there's 4 goals that we're focusing on at Gun this year that the staff supported me in arriving at. And they're a little bit of a departure. Generally, you'd see kind of WASC goals, you know, things that are site goals. But our number 1 goal this year, I think is fantastic. At first, I thought, no, that can't be a site goal. It's never been a site goal before. But our number 1 site goal this year is self-care. And it applies to pretty much everyone in our system. And so we spent the first part of our staff meeting talking about self-care, and a few teachers had gone to a Character Strong professional development, and they ran some activities, and they walked teachers through how to be balanced and healthy. And that's going to really be important. So, I mean, that's definitely a departure from my experience in education. The next one is community and connectedness. That goes with our theme of Gun Together. But you can't take care of yourself. You can't be a community member. So we've got a strong will, and there's a history at Gun of being a tight community, and we're bringing that back. And we're promoting Gun Together through lots of community collaboration, every opportunity we can online to be together. We're absolutely committed to raising our racial consciousness. So we brought in a couple of segments on that. We watched some clips. We had discussions. Teachers were crying out for more. They want to do whatever they can to create the conditions, you know, for us to take a look at ourselves, to create the conditions for every student to feel at ease, at home, and like they can achieve every single one of their goals at Gun. And we all care deeply about that work. And finally, just the collective efficacy around working together to continuously improve our instruction. That's going to be huge. That's what we're all here for. So just to acknowledge to the board, I understand we're here to teach and learn, and we're here to like do it at the best level that we can in a measurable way. And we will have metrics for all those goals. But I'm super excited. We're lining up and we're going to keep those goals in front. I talked to a few student leaders today. They're creating a video to welcome the staff in a staff meeting tomorrow. I'm so right in the weeds of all of this work right now that I'm not being that thoughtful about the way I'm presenting. So I'm going to stop now. But thank you so much for hiring me and having me on board. Again, I'm ready to go, and I feel like I'm in the right place at the right time.
All right, thank you, Principal Stratton. We're very glad to have you here at Gun. I understand I'm having some internet connectivity issues, and we'll hope that this kind of stays steady here for a minute while I introduce Brent Klein. So Brent Klein is our new Palo Alto High School principal. Brent has over 15 years of experience as a high school principal in both California and in Washington State. So he was most recently the principal of Santa Cruz High School. And prior to being a principal, he was a high school assistant principal, a music teacher, a band and an orchestra director. Mr. Klein holds a bachelor's degree from California State University at Hayward and a master's degree from Western Washington University. Mr. Klein was awarded the Western Association of Secondary Administrators Outstanding Achievement Award and also the Western Scholastic Conference Distinguished Principal Award in both 2008 and 2012, I believe, and the Washington State High School The Principal Year Award in 2013. He was also a finalist in the 2014 MetLife National Principal of the Year program for his significant contributions to student achievement at Mariner High School in Washington. So I'll add that Mr. Klein has an unwavering focus on professional development, particularly in aligning curriculum, instruction, and assessment practices, and diligence in engaging the community and parents.
I think Ms. Hendricks is speechless.
That's funny.
I'll jump in. We like Brent Klein a whole bunch, and it's time for you to meet him. So Brent, why don't you jump on in?
Thank you, Dr. Alston.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Dawn. And just as long as you all promise this is the last time I'll be introduced, okay? I'm excited to be the Pally principal. It's a position that I can tell you that fits like a glove, and it was immediate the minute I met Dawn, Karen, and Sharon for my first time, and I knew these were people that I wanted to work with. And as I continued to learn and to experience and to have opportunities to meet the students and the staff and the parents of the Pally community, I'm here to tell you that we're in this together and we're going to do great things, because I know that that's what you all want, and that's what I'm here to do. I come to this position with great awareness, and the awareness comes from not only my experience, but my awareness in knowing that we need to continue to adapt and to change, especially under this certain circumstances. I'm appreciative that I have such a wonderful staff to work with, and I've gotten to know them not only in the last few months, but even in the last 2 days. I know I'm in the right spot, and thank you so much for allowing me to be the Pally principal. And I got to tell you, I'm going to be here longer than typical. Okay, so we got lots of work to do, and I have lots of plans. And I want to help and to not only encourage everybody in the Pally community to not only support our students, but particularly our teachers that have been going through so much training in the last few days, but really since we stopped doing real life school. And the conversations that I've had, the teachers have been incredible. And most importantly, I want to anchor my work into the Pally, into the purpose of Pally High School, and where it anchors itself is supporting and inspiring each other. And that's what I believe is my most #1 priority, is to not only inspire, but to continue to be inspired by what students can do, what teachers can do, and what we can do as a collective community at Palo Alto High School to not only get through these next few months, whatever it's going to look like, but to look forward into a greater existence and a collaborative experience that incorporates everybody. So I'm ready to roll, y'all. And so let's do this. And thank you so much for being so kind and supportive. And I'm looking forward to continuing my experience a long time from now. So I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Principal Klein. And I will say he is rolling and things are moving. We appreciate it. And the only downside to this hire, I've teased it out before, but in my hometown of Santa Cruz, California, I am.
I could finish that for you. She's
That
up
was-
a lot of people.
This is like a Mad Libs. I mean, we can all fill in what we want. Hey, I imagine some of the board members might want to say something, but we do have 2 hands up. So let me quickly check in the to see if these hands are actually intended for this item. My guess is probably not, but if they were, I would feel bad. Derek, could we unmute Esther Hugo.
Mr. Collins, we have one more staff member to introduce.
Oh, my apologies. Okay, Ms. Hugo, please take a pause and let Dr. Austin actually finish his item.
Okay.
Sorry, Board President Collins. I'm going to try again, see if I can get through this. I'm excited to introduce to you Blanca Herrera as our new Coordinator of Information Technologies. Like Ms. Herrera is here tonight. She has 23 years of experience in K-12 education, including as a classroom teacher, a peer coach and mentor, intervention coordinator, principal, district administrator. She's worked as the Director of Instructional Technology at the Saratoga Union School District. She holds a bachelor's degree, BCLAD teaching credential in Spanish, and a master's in instructional technology from San Jose State University. In addition, she has experience as a technology professor at Foothill College in San Jose State, and also holds numerous technology certifications, including Google Educator and Leading Edge certificates. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Herrera before my internet bounces me out again. Welcome, Blanca.
Thank you so much, Karen, for that wonderful introduction. Good evening, everybody. First of all, I want to say how grateful I am for the opportunity to join such an innovative district. I will forever be grateful that I landed in this place at this time. It couldn't have been a more perfect design. And I really look forward to supporting everybody in this district, principals, teachers, parents, students, in our collective efforts of making sure that we support our students to succeed. Not just students, but all students. My 23 years of experience and also using EdTech will definitely come in handy. This is the moment I've been waiting for. I've told several people already to utilize the tech skills and the tech tools that are out there to provide an experience for teachers to be more effective and efficient so that the nitty-gritty stuff can be taken care of and they can focus on what's most important, and that's building relationships with students and parents and getting to know what their needs are and providing that instructional support for all students. So again, thank you so much. I'm very excited. I've been meeting a lot of great people in the last few days. This district is filled with so many rock stars, and I can't wait to meet them all throughout the year and again, offer my support. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And that concludes my introductions.
Thank you. Okay, so let me now try and just check and see if we have comment on this item. Can we try Ms. Hugo? And then we'll try Doctrina. Ms. Hugo, did you want to comment on this item, or were you thinking
yes.
another item?
No, I'm not commenting on your new hires, although they're fabulous. I have just a comment under general comments. I'm not sure when that comes on your agenda.
It's actually, there is no, because this is a special meeting of the board, we don't have comment on unagendized items in this meeting. So what I'd encourage you to do then is you can email your comments to the board at pausd.org. Or we have a meeting in 2 weeks' time, which is a regular meeting, which will have a what we call an open forum session where any item can be discussed.
Okay, all right. I will wait until that time as it's more appropriate. And I thank you for unmuting me.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry for the confusion. All right, so board members, or Dr. Austin, did you want to add anything in addition? It's your report.
No, I was just going to reference that tomorrow is the traditional start of the school year, meaning the Chow Down kickoff event. So while people are back, that is kind of the big event for the entire school district. And this year, every family also received an invitation to join us. We figure if it's virtual, we're not bound by a gym. So anyone who'd like to join us, come on in. Our theme for the year, Ambassadors of Hope. And it's going to make a lot more sense after our kickoff tomorrow. So looking forward to having another positive event to start the year. That's all I have for tonight.
Okay. Any board member questions or comments on the superintendent's report? Okay. Seeing none, I know I speak for the board when I say welcome to all three of you. We're thrilled to have people join our team, especially at such a critical time when we really need the strongest team we can possibly get. And I personally can tell you that I'm thrilled that you're here. And I can't wait to see all the things that you and we can accomplish together. So thank you. All right, so next on our agenda is our consent calendar. These items are considered routine and will be approved in one action without discussion. If a member of the public wishes to comment on any consent item, or if a board member would like to pull an item from consent, we'll consider it under action items. And I will just give a heads up that I will ask to pull item, where is it? 3D, which is the Lexia contract item. So with that, is there a motion? So why don't I move things along? I move that we approve the consent calendar with the exception of item 3D. Is there
A second.
All right, second by Mr. Brienza. Any further requests related to this? All right, and again, just to be in an abundance of caution, I see there are 2 hands up. Let me just, oh, I know one of them I know is to comment on this Lexia item. Let me just check on the other and see if we need to pull another item. Derek, could you unmute Jewel? Jewel, are you interested in talking on a consent item?
Sorry.
Are you interested in talking on one of the consent items?
No, I must have hit something. Excuse me.
No problem at all. It happens to everybody. Okay, so in that case, Dr. Austin, can you take the vote on the consent calendar?
Yes, Ms. DiBrienza,
One day I'll get the hang of this. Aye.
Peyton Caswell,
Aye.
Mr. Dauber,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Mr. Collins.
And I also vote aye. So the consent calendar, items A, B, and C is approved, and we'll now immediately move to consider item 3D, which is the request for approval of contract renewal with Greenfield Learning for Lexia Learning. And I primarily wanted to give, there's a member of the community representing the CAC who wanted to speak to this item. So can we unmute Ms. Kimberly Angley? And you'll have 3 minutes. Can we get the time? Wait just 1 second, Kimberly. Can we get the timer set up on this? There we go. All right, Ms. Angley, go ahead, followed by Christina Schmidt.
Hello, Kimberly Ang Lee, co-chair for the Palo Alto CAC. Special education students are general education students first. Literacy is core to a child's well-being and the ability to be a lifelong learner. We want to speak today on the topic of literacy with a lens towards effective reading instruction. We are particularly concerned about learning loss that may have occurred since distance learning began. According to the Learning Continuity Plan requested by the CDE, PAUSD will need to address pupil learning loss that results from COVID-19 during the 1920 school year and the 2021 school years, particularly in the areas of English language arts, English language development, and mathematics. Lexia is a good practice tool for reading that has been used by our district, and we support the renewal and expansion of this online learning platform. However, it doesn't replace explicit structured literacy instruction. There is important work that has been started in PAUSD with literacy and dyslexia, but we are missing a step that will ensure effective and equitable reading instruction across all our schools. Findings from NWEA referenced by Lexia suggest major academic impacts from COVID closures. Preliminary estimates suggest students return this school year with roughly 70% of the learning gains ineffective in reading relative to a typical school year. We were scheduled to have an update in March about the plan for K-3 students who were screened and identified at risk for a learning difference called dyslexia last fall. When will that happen? When will that happen? And what is the plan for universally screening students this fall? Will Lexia be the only tool available for teachers? In July, the board approved a budget for professional development. Our reading specialists, TOSAs, and special educators were to be OG trained to teach students with dyslexia beyond 3rd grade. Did the training occur this summer? K-1 general ed teachers would receive 2 days of OG training in phonemic awareness, and a multisensory training for the 2nd through 5th grade teachers was to happen during the October PD day. That's been moved forward. Is it part of this week's professional development? And will the teachers be apprised of the process for identifying and supporting students with learning challenges like dyslexia? Can you share the flow chart with parents, and have you published the dyslexia handbook? Can literacy, dyslexia, and the use of Lexia be agendized for a future meeting so the board and community can be updated on how PAUSD is implementing the state's dyslexia guidelines? And finally, perhaps because of the added complexities of distance learning, there might be a need for a dyslexia working group that includes all stakeholders. Thanks very much.
Okay, Christina Schmidt. Ms. Schmidt?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening. I'm Christina Schmidt, the PTA Council President. And I just wanted to comment that PTAs throughout the district support all efforts to improve the academic outcomes for all students and the core value of literacy, especially for students struggling with reading and writing. The Lexia program as an MTSS intervention is a welcomed addition to our existing reading programs, and we support its renewal. We would like to understand more about literacy assessments and universal screenings for our students and how this applies particularly to students identified with dyslexia and who struggle to read. To that end, we are eager for an update on the curriculum in all areas of literacy, and thank you for putting this on the agenda tonight. Good evening.
Thank you. We did have one more speaker, and Nicole McLennan.
Can you hear me?
We do.
Hi, thanks for having me. So I have been in the district for a number of years, and my son was diagnosed with dyslexia exiting 5th grade. And I've been trying to chase down a support for him. And we've gone through a bunch of different ones throughout the years. And where we currently stand is with Language Live. And I'm wondering if that's off the table and we're switching to Lexia. So I'm just a little confused about the switch, and it's been very clear that I'm heavily vested, and this is kind of the first I've heard about the switch. Or is it going to be in conjunction with Language Live?
We generally don't answer questions directly, but if you finish your comments, staff may be able to take it up when you're done.
Yeah, that's about it. I mean, I want to understand the direction the district is going with this, just to get the proper support that my son needs. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, board member comments and questions, and rather than go around, why don't people raise hands? Ms. DeBrienz, I see your hand waving there.
I was hoping that staff could clarify. I believe Lexia is a different program than the one she referred to, but I was wondering if staff could clarify that, because I'm sure she's not the only one with that question, and it might be just a good opportunity as we're approving Lexia to state what role it's playing as compared to some of the other programs we've got.
DeBrienz, if you're okay with it. Oh, Sharon just popped in. There we go. I phoned a friend and here she is. Sophie?
Although her connection doesn't seem too great.
Maybe she could turn off her video and just have audio.
Yeah, Sharon, can you try turning off your video and see if that improves your audio? That worked like a charm. All right, yeah, Sharon, we're not able to hear you.
Maybe we could just, I mean, I can ask it later when we're talking about other services.
Wow.
That's not going to work.
Eric,
Why don't we could just try to answer it later on.
Okay, let's get our meeting started here. So Sharon, Ms. Ovek, can I ask that you mute, because I think you may. Okay. And Mr. Moore, do you have any advice on what we should do here? Any suggestions? Looks like maybe we're better now. Yeah, so it sounds like Ms. Ovek's connection may have been.
Yeah, Mr. Collins, I can tell you, I don't know what's going on. We're having problems in our building though. So we're
Yeah,
all here in the building.
Yeah, I can tell that.
It's-
Yeah, for the members of the community, I mean, the district staff was at work today and are mostly, I believe, still at 25 Churchill. So which has a pretty robust connection, is my recall. So I'm not sure what's going on with our Zoom connection there. I do see Ms. Bacon-Caswell's hand up. Why don't we take her question?
Yeah, and my question might only be answerable by Ms. Ovek, so I at least record it and then get an answer back. I'd like to know if we're doing screening this year for dyslexia and whether the investment that we put in the budget for dyslexia is going to be something we follow through with this year.
Can I, if I may, Ms. Bacon-Caswell, could I, since I imagine that does require Ms. Ovek, can I build on your suggestion, on your question, and actually ask that because we put such a big emphasis on dyslexia last year and actually increased our investment for this year in programming and staff for dyslexia, could we get an update at the August 25th board meeting on how we're handling issues related to dyslexia and struggling readers for the school year? Is that appropriate, Dr. Austin?
Yeah, we can absolutely do that. Like right now I'm getting responses, but this is just no way to do this. So let's do it right later. I will say that our staff is enthusiastically in support of a pretty significant investment in Lexia. So we see this as a huge positive for the night. And I don't want that to be lost. But we also understand that there's some things that we could clarify. It's just not looking good for us right now.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I will just add, I mean, I've been involved with a couple of families using Lexia and had some talks with some of our district office, our education services staff about it. And you know, it's an expensive program, but an outstanding one that a lot of people in the reading community really admire and like. And so I'm very enthusiastic that we're essentially making a meaningful investment in Lexia for our student body. And I hope it'll help both struggling readers and all other readers because it's such a great tool. Okay, if there are no other questions, is there a motion to approve this item?
I'll move that we approve.
A second?
The Lexia contract.
Second.
All right, it's seconded by Ms. Bacon-Caswell, moved by Mr. Brienza. Dr. Austin, could you take the vote?
Yes. Ms. DiBrienza,
Aye.
Bacon-Caswell,
Aye.
Mr. Dauber,
Aye.
Drop,
Aye.
Mr. Collins.
And I vote aye. So thank you for everybody for getting through that one. And now we're on to discussion items. And the first one is 5A, reopening PAUSD Special Education Return to Learn Report. Dr. Austin.
Okay, I do have an opening and my fingers are crossed that I'm going to have some partners helping me out. I can tell you of all the items we've done for reopening, I can't think of one that has been more thoughtful and people have put more time, all hands on deck. So first of all, I want to thank everybody for that. Special education, as we all know, is high stakes and complicated during perfect circumstances, and certainly not less challenging during an abrupt multi-month closure that's now extending into our reopening. You know, we're thankful for our staff and parents who worked through things in the spring and heading into this year. The challenges remain, but our ability to serve students at a higher level is definitely improved. So with that, I'm going to do one of two things. We're either going to try Miss Ofek, or are we going to go straight to Cynthia?
I hope you can see me and hear me.
Okay. Yes, we got you, Miss Ofek.
I have run down the hallway. I hope I have all my right things with me. But I am thankful to have all of the opportunity here. Just give me 1 second to get our presentation up for everybody as I adjust into this new room. All right. All right, Mr. Collins, can you give me a thumbs up on this? Oh, thank goodness. All right, everybody, good evening. We are here to share with you, and the we is myself, Cindy Lolang Perez and Jennifer Baker. They are the directors of special education in our district. The three of us are here this evening to provide the community with an update on our special education plans for reopening PAUSDs, our return to learn plan. So at our last meeting, we shared the general plan, the general education plan, and this evening we're gonna zoom in a little bit more focused on special education. That being said, we have roughly 1,200 students on individualized education plans in PAUSD. Those are IEPs, the I is individualized. So while this is a little bit more focused, it is definitely not individualized for those 1,200 students, but we hope to give you a sense of what your child might experience. Thank you. And as they come to school starting next week and what might be in place. I also wanna just share with everybody that all teachers returned this week. They've participated in 2 professional learning days yesterday and today. This rest of this week, they will hopefully be working to reach out to families and to help everyone feel comfortable with the schedules that their students are going to be participating in. So while we're providing a holistic overview, your site folks are back on campuses and getting to work, and you should be hearing from them, if not already, then very shortly. So with that, I will go ahead and begin by saying, obviously we have the same values as we've had all along with creating all of our plans for bringing students back into the 2020-2021 school year. We want to abide by all the public health guidelines no matter what. We want to maintain an inclusive, caring, and supportive school culture where all students feel connected and safe. We want to establish systematic protocols for our community, and we want to be as timely as we possibly can in communication and transparency. One great example of that is just yesterday, 3 of us attended a webinar held by the County Office of Education, focusing in on changes to guidelines that were just released on the 7th related to returning to school. So we are attending all of the meetings. We are trying to get that information, and as quickly as we get it, we adjust our plans if needed or communicate out. So tonight you'll hear, even though this presentation was created and posted last week, you will hear what we learned just yesterday even. So just like all of our other programs, our special education students, of course, have a program that is designed to abide by all of the elements that are pushed out in the form of guidelines related to the CDE that the governor shared in, mid-July. The Senate Bill 98 that delineates all kinds of expectations for students and student learning and rigorous student learning. Our County Office of Education and Department of Public Health have been partnering together. And as I shared, we just attended a webinar yesterday for updates and from that set of agencies. And then of course, our own Board of Education, community input. We are so grateful for our relationship with CAC and the two-way communication coming from that family organization in Palo Alto to help us. And then of course, lessons learned from the spring that we are going to, well, we did bring into consideration as we started planning. And we also did some ESY programming that we learned quite a bit from. So we are feeling pretty prepared to share all of this information with you. Again, holistic and not specific to each one of the 1,200 students, but you should get a sense here today, this evening, of what that might be. So with that, I'll say we have all these modalities that we've always had: full distance, return to school with no restrictions, which we're all hoping for shortly. But we feel a hybrid or modified program would be in the intermediate phase of that. And so that's where we've been focusing all of our energies, knowing that it is our interest as a district to bring some of our most needy and students, needy meaning like most dependent on some teacher school-based learning happening, to return to school first. That is definitely a high priority for us. So with that, I turn things over to Cindy Loling Perez, who's going to give us a little review or overview of what the elements of the distance learning model is.
Good evening, board. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so our 100% distance learning model for preschool to post-secondary, there are 6 components that we were looking at. The first component is instruction. So small groups, students in small group or individuals will synchronously engage with their special education staff daily, and they will follow the general education bell schedule. The second component, it falls under services and supports. Our related service minutes will be delivered as written in the most current agreed upon IEP, and those services may be delivered through teletherapy. Our third component is connectedness. We want to ensure that students stay connected, and we're doing this by creating opportunities for them to engage with one another through enrichment, social emotional learning, outdoor activities as permitted, and other types of activities like virtual dances that worked well, and virtual field trips that also worked well. Another component is instructional aids. So we will also be utilizing our instructional aids by providing support during small group instruction. And they may also meet individually with students under the supervision of a special education teacher. The fifth component is assessments. Our plan is to move forward with one-to-one in-person assessment unless, of course, it's prohibited. Our service providers will be reaching out to families to start scheduling assessment appointments. And of course, when we do in-person assessments, we will definitely follow on-campus protective measures, which includes social distancing, the use of face covering, and hygiene. And our last and sixth component falls under communication. And our plan is for our case managers to have weekly updates on students' progress to families.
Thank you, Ms. Loling Perez. We have Jennifer Baker, who's going to take us through what a day in the life of a special education student might be like.
Great, thank you, Sharon. I appreciate everyone coming out, and good evening to everyone. Monday does indeed mark the first day of school, and I want to assure parents that we have been working very hard over the summer to prepare for our students to come back, and we're really excited for their return and the launch of what's going to be a positive, good year. One of the things that we're looking forward to is at the start of every block or every period, we will be offering the synchronous instruction through our special education teachers and staff. We will utilize whole class Zoom sessions for students to attend daily. That will give them the opportunity to have some nice interactions with their teachers and their support staff as another means of remaining connected. And then students in our academic support classes will meet with their special education teachers as indicated on their IEP. Thank you. So we are definitely going to be offering our services in alignment with the last agreed upon IEP. So we're really looking forward to all of our special education staff supporting our students in work completion, making progress on goals, and really bumping up the rigor and the engagement in our academics from spring. You would definitely see a marked increase in how we utilize our instructional assistants. So we will be utilizing them a lot more for small group instruction, one-to-one opportunities for our students that require that. All of that's going to be done under the direction of our educational specialists, but we are going to give them broader scope and broader reign to work with our kids than they had in the spring. So we're really looking forward to that, hopefully increasing engagement for our students who have a difficult time accessing this modality, and just bringing some quality instruction to all of our kids. Thank you. So all of your related services, your OTs, speech, ARMS, adaptive PE, those will all be delivered in conjunction with the last agreed upon IEP. And we will be embedding our APE team with our programming. So we'll see some nice whole group opportunities for the whole group to participate in that. And it's just one more opportunity to provide students with yet another way of socializing and remaining connected that we don't typically have when we're on site. And so we continue to build our community, regardless of how we come to our students or how we connect as a community. We are always interested in building it. And we had some very successful social opportunities in spring. We had some nice virtual dances that were wildly popular. And over the ESY, we explored virtual field trips. So we were able to get out to Monterey Bay Aquarium. We saw a fire station. I'm now trying to drag all my relatives into hosting some virtual field trips for us this year. So we heard you parents when you talked about, really the need for that social emotional connection, and we certainly recognize it. So we'll be prompting more of that in our classes, but we'll be using virtual student activities, class meetings, self-advisory clubs, all of those opportunities will be available so we can continue to grow our social community. And so we do anticipate returning to in-person instruction when changes in health requirements allow for it. So when we are able to do that, elementary will return in AB cohorts, which essentially means your elementary student would be on campus for part of the week and home virtually for the other part of the week. And what we really aim to do is minimize the amount of time that we have to pull students for services when they have live instruction. So most of your pull-out services would be on the virtual days, and that would be scheduled with your SAI instructor. And then the push-in services would largely be when your students were present on campus. So we were looking forward to minimizing how much pull-out we do, because we know that live instruction is going to be very valuable in the event that we're able to return.
So as you all know, this summer we were able to provide in-person instruction for our secondary futures and post-secondary programs. Actually, some of those pictures that were included in the day in the life of a student was actually pictures from our ESY program. So this experience actually enabled us to design an effective modified return. So we are anticipating that futures programs may be able to provide daily in-person academic instruction for students. Services may be delivered in a combination of both virtual and in-person. And regarding post-secondary, again, we are hopeful that maybe we can provide daily in-person instruction for students. And as you all know, post-secondary, their focus is really work experience. So we are hopeful the students may be able to report to their work site with support of our program staff.
So Cindy, if you don't mind, I'm just going to briefly return quickly to the assessments. We, as you mentioned, we're really looking forward to doing the in-person assessments. We also have our school psychologist team is working very hard to build robust assessments, regardless of whether or not they're delivered in person or we are prohibited from that and have to start remote. So I just wanted to assure families that regardless, we will be moving forward with our assessments. And our team is doing an amazing job right now. They're really coordinating their efforts and really stepping up to make sure that what we do is appropriate and it's thorough and it allows for us to move forward. So Cindy and I just wanted to assure the parent population that we will be moving forward regardless. But our hope is in person, always in person.
Thank you. Our next element of this presentation talks about professional learning, and I just want to reassure everyone on the board and in the community that all of our special education staff were also part of the PAUSD Modern Pedagogy for All Modalities summertime offering, and teachers who did not complete the training over the summer have time this week to do it. In addition to our professional learning for all staff over the summer, our special education staff this year will continue to receive training and updates and workshops on CIRUS, which is our county system for that houses IEPs. It's the county IEP system, and our district uses that. And we are also counting on providing some additional training or training for all the new staff regarding Goalbook, which is a tool that helps us to write goals that are aligned to the Common Core, and then identify services that relate to those goals that can be implemented. So our special education staff definitely have equally robust professional learning opportunities in this coming school year. And then finally, we just want to share that we really do take into consideration what we think is best for students based on what we've learned and the input and the communication we have with our community and our Board of Education to provide the best possible experience for them. And we know this is a tough program to work through in some cases, and we are open to feedback. So with that, Mr. Collins, I turn things over to, actually, I'm supposed to turn things over to Ms. Hendricks, who is going to add some information here. Sorry, Ms. Hendricks.
Thank you. So as part of our staff presentation tonight, we have PAEA President Terry Baldwin and CSEA President Meb Steiner here to join us. So I'm going to ask if we can go ahead and pull up.
Great. This is Terry Baldwin, President of the Palo Alto Educators Association. I just wanted to explain that we are still negotiating about some of this and have some concerns, especially around our Mod Severe and Futures programs coming back earlier and in full classes. Our special ed teachers really want to be treated the same as their general ed colleagues. They want their health and safety as well as that of their students to be taken into consideration, just as the health and safety of all the other teachers and students. There are more adults in a special ed classroom than in general ed classrooms, so more risks are involved. Teachers don't want to come back earlier than general ed teachers and want hybrid classes as well. Their class sizes are smaller for a reason, and when we do come back, they should be half classes because the number of adults in those classrooms. With some populations, mainly our Mod Severe and Futures classes, there are even more adults than normal in the room, and there's a lot of one-to-one work, and students need more help. Some need toileting and hand-over-hand help. This increases the risk of exposure not only to the teachers, but to the aides and students as well. Mod Severe students are a most vulnerable population, and risking them doesn't seem to make sense. It has been said that distance learning doesn't work for Mod Severe, but actually it has worked. There was a distance ESY summer school that went very well, I've been told by the teacher. It has been mentioned that teachers could be outfitted in the same PPE as doctors and nurses, but they are not doctors and nurses who usually work with one patient at a time and change all of their PPE in between patients. They don't work with a whole class. Changing PPE out every time an adult has an extremely close contact with a student in a full class will take a lot of time out of that class. Many of these students can't wear or won't keep on masks and can't social distance. Even in the pictures, there wasn't social distancing. I have heard that synchronous, I already said that part. Coming back with hybrid classes when our other gen ed classes come back and not before is the safest option for everyone involved. Our own COVID-19 mandatory training states that social distancing and reducing the number of people an individual comes in contact with are the best ways to prevent the spread of the virus. Having special ed classes come back sooner and in full classes goes against our own training. I really hope that we put health and safety above everything. All of our teachers have gone through a ton of training and they will do the best they can for their students. Many have put in many hours over than the 12 that is in the MOU, and they did it knowing they weren't going to be paid for those extra hours, that they were just going to do it so that they could do the best job they could. So please keep all of that in consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Steiner, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. I think I unmuted. Oh, forgot to change my name to Meb Steiner. But anyways, Meb Steiner, President of CSEA Palo Alto Chapter 301. I echo everything that Ms. Baldwin said, because many of the concerns that the teachers have are the same concerns that classified staff would have as well. We would also need, additional cleaning and protocols for all of those classrooms from a custodial standpoint too. And there's a lot of adults who are involved. I do want to say that our aides are very willing and able to support our students, and we welcome training on, working one-on-one with them in a distance learning modality. I do echo that we need to focus on health and safety first. I strongly urge the district to survey our staff in order to find out folks who have health vulnerabilities or age vulnerabilities, or folks at home who might be more vulnerable. That has not yet happened. I know people have received assignment notices, and some of them will need to be changed because they're not going to be appropriate for some of the staff members. And I've had some folks reach out already. I really want us to, I want to emphasize, we all want to come back. We miss our kids. We did some wonderful things in distance learning in the Futures program that I supported. The dances were wonderful, but even our classroom, we'd had our APE, we supported students individually. We contributed to helping teachers create materials and find materials and then provide that to our students. Our graduation drive-by was really wonderful and the kids welcomed it. But we are in the middle of a pandemic still, and I am very concerned about that. I strongly believe we need to do as much distance learning as possible. And I think it will be much more robust because we are now planning for it. It's not in sort of the emergency state we were in. And I just want to share something. One of our members tested positive, and she sent a statement. She was hoping to read it tonight, but is not quite prepared. And I will very quickly end with that. To ask how many people know someone who's tested, who has COVID-19. And if you know me, then you do now. Her name is Karen Kessler. She's one of our instructional assistants, is in science. This is someone who knows what to do, and yet somehow she still got it. She's been in the district for 28 years, started sheltering in place. She's 69, has an underlying health condition that puts her at risk, but she's done everything correctly and still got it. As she urges us to think about, as we move forward, that we don't know enough about this virus, but we do know that it's incredibly contagious, and asks that we delay going back to bricks and mortar classroom learning until every person in every classroom and every room can be safe. All our students, our staff, and our community as a whole. I really urge us to sort of stop and think about that as we prepare for reopening.
Ms. Steiner, it's the staff's time, but I'm mindful of the timer.
Yes, I appreciate that. I just want to end with, we are where we are now, and we need to continue on those health and safety measures. And there is a touch of irony to be discussing reopening schools at a virtual board meeting. And I know, these are the times we're in, and I just want us to really keep health and safety first and foremost in mind, and know that all CSEA staff ready to support students, and we welcome the training that will be needed to provide the robust learning experiences our students need. Thank you.
I think it's back to Ms. Hendricks and Dr. Austin. It's still here.
That is the conclusion of our report. So it's in your hands now.
Okay. All right. If my colleagues agree, I think our next step would be to take public comments and questions. And so now for people who want to comment on this item, this is the time to raise your hand in Zoom, or if you're dialed in by phone, to press *9. And I'll wait a second so we can try to get a clear sense of how many people are wanting to speak, so we can set the time right. All right, I'm gonna, it looks like we're gonna be over 20, so we'll go for 1 minute each. Vicki, if you can get that timer set up, we'll get started. And the first person will be Vaibhav Vash, And the second would be Dave Bell, followed by one name only, Megan.
Hi there, can you hear me?
We do.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Thank you, everyone. This is a plea to please consider hybrid options for students with disabilities, like my first grader son, for whom learning, talking, reading was a major challenge even before the pandemic. I only have huge thanks for our IP team and the PAUSD special ed staff for the Herculean efforts for distance learning and for committing to provide the same service minutes over distance learning. But it's not about the minutes, it's about the learning. There's a touch of irony for people to say that special ed students need more adults, toilet training, and 2 sentences later to claim that that can effectively be provided over distance learning. For many students, online learning doesn't work. They learn instead to disconnect from their devices and from their learning. Their needs and progress cannot be reliably assessed, and many regress. Please leave no avenue unexplored to return us to some hybrid learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Mr. Dave Bell, followed by Megan, followed by Mike Greenberg.
Can you hear me?
We do.
So I've been a parent in this district for 23 years, more than one student in that entire period in special education. I would echo the comments of the preceding commenter. My child has profound disabilities, both physical and cognitive. To suggest that distance learning is in any way remotely appropriate for my child and for many of the other children that I know in the district is beyond belief. The idea that this can be done in this way is just not realistic. At best, you could get some distance learning accomplished if there was a one-to-one aide sitting with my child at the desk during the distance learning with the computer. You are not fulfilling your legal obligations under the IDEA or California law. Parents are going to be forced to resort to litigation or to self-help that is going to be very costly as district as we bill you for costs that we have to incur when fulfilling our child's needs.
Thank you, and sorry for hitting the time limit. As some people know, if you get cut off, or even if you don't, feel free to send your comments by email to us at board@pausd.org. That's board@pausd.org. And the board members are very attentive to their emails. So please use that too. Next will be Megan, followed by Mike Greenberg, followed by Z Lee. Megan, are you there?
Oh, sorry. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, we do.
Hi. First, I just wanted to say thank you. I know that there's so much that goes into this, and this is such a touchy and personal subject for so many parents. I just wanted to add maybe consideration of IEPs during the virtual time. It's a different monster, what that model looks like in person versus in virtual. Not so much on the goals that need to be achieved, but the setting. For context, I have a second grader with autism. He has an IEP that has him primarily in a mainstream class with an aid and pull-out services. That worked phenomenally for him in person. But in the virtual space, it's actually the reverse that's helpful. He needs more time with the special ed teachers and just occasional push-ins to the broader class. I'm concerned to do that though, because when we go back to in-person, that's not the model I'd look for. So just the consideration that some adjustments to IEPs and the ability to revert back as virtual and in-person are two different models.
Thank you. All right, next up, Mike Greenberg, followed by Z Lee, followed by Brenna Chang. Mr. Greenfield, are you there?
Can you hear me?
We do.
Oh, hi. Yeah, this is Christina Greenberg, Mike Greenberg's wife. So I have, thanks everyone for all the comments. I echo what my fellow parents have said before me. So I've got a son with autism entering first grade. He has a one-to-one aide. He needs in-person services to access education. He destroyed most of the screens in our household. We had to pay someone to be here full-time with him. We can no longer afford to do that. Preschools are reopening. Private aides are available. So if the school district is not able to provide in-person services, we would like to ask for reimbursement so that we can get those services from people who are willing and able to provide them. The anxiety of our kids having more regression just sits on my chest to where I can't breathe. And so we need to have this addressed, either through that or at least getting our aides available full-time via video conference, which was not given to us last year.
Great. So next, Mr. Zili, followed by Brenna Chang, followed by Yanling Wang. See you there? Okay, let's come back to Z and let's do Brenna Chang, followed by Yanling Wang, and then we'll come back to Z. Brenna, are you there?
Hello? Hello,
Hey.
can you? Okay. Hi, my name is Bryna Chang. I've got two boys at JLS and Gunn, but today I'm speaking about the needs of my nephews who are also in PAUSD. Both have autism and ADHD. They are an incoming kinder and third grader. Neither is self-sufficient in terms of most self-care activities, much less operating a computer. I'm begging PAUSD to come up with some sort of safe in-person assistance or instruction because I don't see how distance learning will be possible, much less effective for my nephews. Neither child is able to sit in front of a screen for 15 minutes unattended, so I don't know how they are going to do all the synchronous sessions. For in-person school, each boy has a full-time aide assigned to him as specified in his IEP, but at home they won't have an aide, and instead my sister will be attempting to help them both at the same time, which is a near impossible feat. We desperately need a solution that works, and have received no response from the special ed team regarding requests for more information so we can attempt to prepare.
Thank you. All right, let's try Yanling Wang, and then we'll try Zili again, followed by Susan Van Riesen.
Good evening. My name is Yan Ling. I really thank you all for the hard work putting together the plan. I know this is a lot of work behind, but I also really want to call out what has been talked about by the parents in front of me, is that when the aides are providing support virtually, it will literally leaving high-risk students with little to no options. There are students who are just not able to be independent and sit in front of a screen. And not all families have the flexibility to support them during school hours. And not all the families were able to afford the cost to hire someone for help, particularly for this group of special needs students, which are higher cost than the regular, the neurotypical kids. And will the family be forced to withdraw from distance learning? Can the district really help to explore alternatives? For example, can we have the aides and students work one-on-one on campus, just the two of them, right, for example, and can we send them home? Or can we actually give the funding to family to hire rather than spending the funding for someone providing the support virtually? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll try Zili again, followed by Susan Van Riesen, followed by Sarah Williams. Z, are you there? Okay, let's move on to Susan Van Riesen, followed by Sarah Williams, followed by, not sure, it's looked like S. Sastry.
Hello, this is Alex Van Riesen on Susan Van Riesen's link. I just want to echo what the other parents have been saying and add along what David Bell said. I actually was not working in the spring, and I actually sat down with my 17-year-old gun special needs student who is severely disabled, and actually tried to help him in person understand what was happening on the screen. I am not trained in this area, and it was extremely difficult. Even when, as one parent suggested, there was just one aide on the other end and me helping him, I realized most of our kids don't really know how to interact with the screen. If we think this is difficult for our typically developing children, we have to understand it's 10 to 50 to 100 times more difficult for our special needs children. We need to find a way to get them one-on-one interaction with an aide in the same place, like we did this summer.
Thank you. All right, Sarah Williams, followed by Sastry, followed by Audrey Chang.
Hi, thank you all for your work on our behalf. I'm a parent of an incoming kinder with autism. I would like information about how special ed will be addressed in the distance learning setting. I appreciate the other families advocating for in-person instruction since that is appropriate for their students. However, our family has opted for full-year distance learning for a variety of reasons, including many of the reasons cited by our teacher and classified union representatives. My daughter does not have the skill needed to respect distance and PPE. I've heard primarily that the goal for special ed is to return to in-person learning ASAP, but that is not appropriate for my student, and I'd like some district policy information about distance learning. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is Sastry, followed by Audrey Chang, followed by Arya Sufiani. Sastry? All right, let's move to Audrey Chang, and then we'll do Arya Sufiani, and then we'll try Sastry again.
Hi, my name is Audrey Chang. I have two sons, a third grader and also an incoming kindergartner. I echo the comments of most of the other parents. I strongly encourage PAUSD to consider some in-person option for kids like mine, or a revision to the IEP services to meet their unique needs. Both my boys have autism. They both each have a full-time one-on-one aide written into their IEPs. Neither of them can access distance learning. They're 6 and 8 years old. ESY, which was full distance learning for the elementary age, did not work for my kids, despite the best efforts of the special ed teacher. It's stressful for the kids, stressful for me. Each of them requires somebody to be next to them full-time in person. Even then, often can't engage productively and have frequent meltdowns. I simply can't replicate school at home for my boys. The same in-person services and schedules just implemented over a computer screen does not work. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next is Arya Sufiani, and then we'll try Sastry again. Oh, it looks like we lost Arya. I'm not sure what happened here. So, okay, let's try Elo Nielsen, and then we'll try Sastry again, and then we'll try Kimberly Engley.
Hi, can you hear me?
We do.
So I'm a special education teacher, and I'm also the parent of a child with significant special needs who was on IEPs from kindergarten on. After a dizzying learning curve to do district teaching remotely last spring, I found many benefits to this form of instruction. We've heard from many parents with students with severe impairments. These students are of primary concern in person learning, as well as Terry Baldwin accurately expressed. We need to be mindful that special education students are very varied, from severe to mild impairments, and the vast majority are in the mild mod program or speech therapy. As a speech therapy, I work with the full range of students and saw much more growth through the distance model than in school because of the generalization aspect. Our goal is to teach the children the skills and have them use them in many different environments. The mere fact that they were receiving instruction outside of my classroom is beneficial, and that parents saw what the children was capable of added to them having those same expectations at home, which is a benefit to our students.
Thank you. Looks like Arya Sufiani is back. So let's try her, followed by Sastry, followed by Kimberly Engley.
Hello, good evening. My name is Arya Sufiani. I'm an instructional aide at Gunn High School. I had the pleasure of working at online ESY with Ms. Nandini Mohan, as well as a few students from Fletcher and Gunn High School. It has been a very successful summer term. I really want the district to really consider our safety, staff safety, as well as student safety, to consider building a robust online system that echoes what San Diego, Los Angeles Unified, and Chicago schools are practicing. I really love to see my students, but I have a mother with Hashimoto's disease, as well as a father with asthma, and I would hate to bring that back to them. And it's very painful to consider this, but I would really like it if we can continue keeping this online system.
Thank you. All right, we'll try Sastry again, followed by Kimberly Englee, followed by Olenka Villarreal. Sastry, are you there? Okay, let's try Kimberly Englee, Olenka Villarreal, and then Yael Neve.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm the co-chair for the Palo Alto CAC. The pandemic has not impacted all children equally. This is especially true for those who experience the world through sight, sound, and touch, students with more severe disabilities, such as our kids in therapeutic and futures classrooms. For them, in-person instruction is essential, and for many of them, distance learning does not work. These parents report that children are not making progress on IEP goals. Their children are not receiving FAPE, and they see regression on hard-earned skills. The brief opening of ESY provided opportunities for those students for whom in-person instruction is essential. Not all students can attend in person due to them being medically fragile, so those secondary students who couldn't participate in person this summer received no services. As we return to learn, we hope the district will provide for the special needs of all students. Kids with IEPs and 504s are not all okay right now.
Thank you. All right. Next is Olenka Villarreal, followed by Yael Nava. I know you, Yael, and I apologize. I can't pronounce your name. Followed by Rika Yamamoto.
Good evening, everybody. This is Olenka. Well, first of all, to echo what everybody else has said, it's difficult, it's exhausting. I represent a child, Ava, who is certainly a non-social distancer, a non-Zoom learner. She's broken our screens as well. And, the reality is since March, other than that short time with ESY, very sadly and unfortunately, we've had really zero what I would call meaningful educational experiences. And I understand that AVA does represent a fairly small minority of the really severely impacted students. And I have reached out to the district, and I'm reaching out again to all of you. We would love to figure out a way to address everybody's concerns. I hear Terry Baldwin saying that teachers need to be safe. Of course, we want to be we all want to be safe, but there has to be a way for something creative outside, perhaps with 2 students at a time, and I'm willing to help.
Thank you. All right, Yael, followed by Rika Yamamoto, followed by Supriya.
Hi, it's Yael Neve. And I wanted to speak to what a lot of people have already spoken about today, the higher needs students like my son. I am actually in a privileged position because my son is able to do some distance learning, which is unusual given the level of his disability. But I also have a daughter who's a 7th grader, so is fairly independent. But even within that, I feel like the district hasn't best utilized their resources. So during the spring, there was virtually no individual time. Even during ESY, I didn't feel that my son received the aid assistance that he needs. And I'm also really concerned about what will happen when half his schedule is in general education during distance learning. I think that will be impossible for my son to achieve.
Thank you. Rika Yamamoto, followed by Supriya, followed by Trish Jemison.
Hi, can you hear me?
We do.
All right. Hi, my name is Rika Yamamoto, co-chair of Palo Alto CAC. First of all, I appreciate the letter from both directors, which state that students will receive the support to be successful in this environment. With that, a question left is about learning loss. SB 98 required the district to adapt by September 30th, 2020, a learning continuity plan for 2020-24 school year. This plan requires what additional support will be provided for students with exceptional needs served across the full continuum of the placement to address student learning loss into the school year. in particular in the area of English and language art, English language development, and the mathematics. So I'm looking forward to hearing information related to how the district will address the learning loss. And I urge PAUSD Promise has goal for special education and inclusion. I urge that this.
Thank you, and sorry to cut you off, and you can email your comments to board@pausd.org. Supriya, followed by Trish Jemison, followed by Anne Marie Metzler.
All right. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to appreciate all the support provided by the special education staff so far. I am a parent of a 4-year-old preschooler. We made the hard choice of leaving a different city and coming to Palo Alto because we heard so many great things about the school district. And I really would like to see a differentiation on how PAUSD is able to support children with special needs. Having said that, as a preschooler who's going to be ready to go to kindergarten next year, he was making progress in being more independent, learning to do schedules and stuff like that, where he made so much progress, and that whole instructional control is going away and lots of regression because of this model. So I really want to echo other parents' comments and figure out a way on how other school districts and countries are doing to support such young kids, so the foundation is not lost. Thank you.
Thank you. Trish Jemison, Anne Marie Metzler, and Nathan Yu.
Hi there, can you hear me?
We do.
First and foremost, I would just like to thank you, Todd Collins, for responding, being the only person to respond to my emails to everyone. And secondly, I wanted to thank all of the Futures teachers for putting together within probably one day, at least a program that helped my daughter get through the spring, in spite of probably what they didn't have available to them. And then I wanted to say that this is obviously an unprecedented and impossible situation. There's no perfect solution, but with my daughter, there's no way to safely provide in-person learning. She needs toileting and one-on-one help close by. And therefore, I please implore that you please consult with the parents about what works best individually for their own children. Thank you.
Thank you. Anne Marie Metzler, Nathan Yu, and Christine Baker. Anne Marie? All right, let's try Nathan Yu, Christine Baker, and then we can come back to Anne Marie. Nathan?
Oh, hello, can you hear me?
We do.
Oh, actually, Nathan Yu is my son. My name is Scott Yu. Sorry about that. So I just wanted to bring that up, the same comment from one of the parents mentioning that the in-person learning is essential for kids with special needs. So ABA providers are considered to be essential providers, and they are allowed to provide in-person services at this time. And I'm not sure why school cannot do that. School is more critical, and they are more essential to the lives of our kids. And I just cannot understand why school cannot adopt a plan that's both safe for the teachers and staff and other families, and also that's workable for kids. Like we can come up with a limited method, like once a week in-person attendance, and the rest of the week we can do distance learning, for example. So I think we can still do that, adopting a gradual plan to meet the needs.
Sorry to cut you off, and if you want to email additional comments, please do, board@pausd.org. All right, Anne Marie Metzler, Edwin, and then Zili again.
Hello, can you hear me?
We do.
Hi, my name is Anne Marie Metzler. I'm a proud gun titan and a 12th year SPED teacher. I want to start with that more than anything, I have the desire to return to the classroom. That said, my parents and my brother survived the virus in April and temporarily seemed fine. At first, I was very gung-ho to return to the classroom. I attended ESY meetings. If there was an in-person opportunity, I was ready to take it. Since then, my parents and brother have had residual health effects from the virus, and it's made me seriously reconsider my positions and my thoughts on in-person teaching and learning. Distance learning is not ideal, but it is a system that we will learn to make work, and we have had robust training over the summer. I value my students and their learning, and I am willing to do services in the future if that's what's needed, but I value my students' lives and their health more than anything. We don't know enough about the virus. We don't know enough about its long-term health effects.
Thank you. Next up is Edwin, followed by Z Lee, and the last will be Christine Baker. Edwin, you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
We do.
Hi, sorry about that. So I want to say a few things. First is I think ESY doesn't work for everyone. Definitely we had a really bad experience. We heard from other family as well. Now, kids is not severe, so it's not necessarily all severe kids that has this challenge with distance learning. Definitely, I think that was misrepresentation, and the success of ESY was a misrepresentation, and at least for the distance learning part of the ESY. And then finally, I think that we had paid for aid, and one of the parents has talked about ABA service why they're able to bring aids to home. So definitely there is a safe and appropriate way to have in-person aid and in-person support and in-person learning that can be implemented at various settings, including someone's home as well as a school. So it kind of feels like some of the concern that was brought up by the others could be addressed if we addressed it appropriately. So I think that should be something that should be looked at.
Thank you. All right, Z Lee and then Christine Baker.
Can you hear me?
We do.
Perfect. Sorry about that. Thank you so much, everybody, for all the hard work for preparing for the reopening. So I just want to echo the previous comments that distance learning works for some kids, but for the kids with severe needs, it really does not work, particularly for our family. I have an elementary school kid with severe needs need 24/7 supervision, a seventh grader in flight development, and I'm a single dad, need to work full time. During the past 4 months, I have been working while supervise my younger son's work, older son's work. Without my presence, my younger son with special needs, it does not work at all. So I beg and plead, everybody, please consider different needs of different type of child. And for some kid, distance learning works, for our kid does not work at all. And we're in desperate situation every day. Thank you.
Thank you. And last will be Christine Baker.
Mr. Collins, we're having a problem with Christine Baker.
Okay, sorry, Ms. Baker. I think that's a technical issue we won't be able to resolve. Okay, so that's it for public comment. And we'll turn to board member questions and comments. Why don't we raise hands? We can just do it that way. Ms. Baden-Caswell, is that your hand up for this, or is that from before?
That's actually from before. I can have my colleagues ask questions first.
All right, I see Ms. DeBrienza has got her hand up, so let's go to her.
Okay, thanks so much. I first want to thank everyone who called in. There were some, everyone who spoke from the heart and spoke about the real struggles of the spring, and having 3 kids at home doing remote learning, I can relate somewhat. But it's clear that kids that have some severe needs, it's just at a whole different level. And I hear the desperation, and I appreciate you speaking up and really keeping it front of mind for all of us to consider who is most impacted by this shutdown as we proceed with making plans and are on and off the watch list and whatnot. So thank you for that. Dr. Austin, or maybe our special ed directors, I just want to, for parents that got the special ed letter yesterday, and maybe you're paying attention to this presentation this evening, I just want to be really clear. If I'm the parent of a child who has an IEP and gets pullout services, say 30 minutes a day while we were in session, before time, got 30 minutes per day pullout, are you saying that I can expect to have 30 minutes of one-on-one or small or whatever it was now when we start school again next week? Is that what we can expect? And if we were pulled out before, if it conflicts with a time that the class is doing, how will parents expect to hear about that? And what can they expect the services that they'll get will look like?
Yeah, I know the answer, but I'd like to call on Jennifer Baker to respond as our Director of Elementary.
Thank you, Dr. Austin. So in short, yes, if they had the 30 minutes on their IEP, is that what they can expect to receive? That is exactly what we're offering. I think we've had the opportunity to work with our sites and plan some of this program scheduling, and as much as possible, try to keep it from conflicting with some of the times that you're talking about when you wouldn't necessarily want to pull a student. We definitely will be able to honor more of the aid time, specifically for most students who have the one-to-one support that we weren't able to do in spring. So they should be hearing from their case managers soon about what their programming will look like when they return.
Oh, great. So that was my next question. When will case managers really be sort of up to speed here? Because it sounds like as parents worry about this, they reach out to their case manager and maybe the case managers don't have everything. They don't know everything yet, because it sounds like you're just really securing the whole program at this point. Yes.
So what I would love to just throw a shout out to our case managers. Many of them attended some meetings that we had prior to their return, and we were able to do some initial training as to what the programs will look like in distance learning. So we are going out to our sites and working individually with them as well. They just officially returned on the 10th. So I would imagine families will be hearing later this week or early next week. Principals have been trained in the reopening plan as well, so they can assist and support. And then, of course, a huge value in reaching out to your program specialists, which are special education staff who help conceive of the plan and are trained in it and can really speak with parents and staff to walk through any lingering questions. So we have a different array of people that we can reach out to.
Great. So it sounds like, I mean, obviously anxiety is high among parents because school starts soon and they don't know the plan yet, but it sounds like there is a plan, we're communicating the plan, we're developing the plan, and they can expect to hear soon.
Yes, they can expect to hear soon.
Great. That's wonderful. Thank you. And this question might be for Ms. Ofek or Ms. Conaway, because I know that 504s are not part of special ed, but they are accommodations that I know a lot of parents have questions about. Can we get an update on really who is managing the 504s right now? And I'm sure some of these accommodations, a family or a student may not need to hear from staff because it's not an accommodation that will be impacted in distance learning right now. But for those that will, when can they expect to hear? Who would reach out to them?
Sure. So 504s are not part of special education. They're part of the general education program. And every school site has a 504 coordinator that parents should be aware of and should reach out to. I will say staff just came back. Their first day back was yesterday. So I know our counselors, our staff, our administrators are all working diligently to participate in the professional learning that we have been hosting in the last day and yesterday and today, but they're also working to do outreach to our parents and to look through schedules and et cetera. So I want to also just identify a strategy that we definitely use. We do communicate as administrative teams at every site with our teachers exactly who in their classes have a 504 or an IEP. And they get the information sort of, we call it at a glance. So like a 504 at a glance or an IEP at a glance. And it gives just, again, a high level overview and then the student's name, what the accommodations are, whatnot. And teachers will be receiving those as well this week. So they can start to get that information. That is routine, that happens annually. That is pandemic or not, distance learning or in-person learning. So those strategies are all happening. That is what typically happens during this return to school week. So that is ongoing and that is happening for both students on IEPs and students with 504s.
Okay, that's helpful. So so parents can be assured that if their child has a 504, the teachers that they are going to be interacting with will soon have those accommodations in front of them and know what those accommodations are to be.
Yeah, and they can reach out to the schools. I mean, secondary schools have guidance counselors that I would recommend reaching out to, and elementary schools have a 504 coordinator identified. In general, it's usually the school psychologist and or the administrative team somewhere in that arena. So if you should know who that is for your site, and if you don't, reach out to the principal and ask them who they should be in touch with.
Okay, great. I expect there'll be a lot of communication this year, as I'm sure some of these accommodations are easily transferable to a virtual setting and some are not, or some are really obvious and some are not. So hopefully there'll just be a lot of back and forth as we work it all out for now. And while I have you, Ms. Ofek, again, I know it's not special ed, but it was a question that we asked before and you weren't able to answer because of the connection, but wondering about the Lexia versus the other programs that we have in place and if we still have them, and also the dyslexia training, the universal screening and the teacher training and reading specialist training and K1 OG training. If you could speak a little bit about that, or maybe we said we'll get an update at the next meeting. That might be the.
Let me give you a quick response. We'll prepare an update in a future meeting, but we are screening. We are working through all of our assessments to see what's available online and what can be administered online and what can't be, and what are we doing. So our intention is to do screening for students like we did last year. With regard to the instruction through Language Live, that is a different program than Lexia. It is not the same, and it is a different level of intervention. We will maintain both of those programs, and the Lexia licensing was an expansion of an existing contract, and we are providing that for K-8 plus some additional licenses for older students in our high schools should we need them, and in particular for EL students, et cetera. So again, one is like an instructional program that is like a curriculum, and one is a support or an intervention, different levels of the MTSS system. So with regard to that parent's question around whether one is replacing the other, no, the answer is no, one is not replacing the other. And then with regard to the screeners, I just answered that, and then the rest we'll just come back to. That's a whole separate conversation, I think.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mr. Dauber.
Thank you. Thanks to all of the speakers who I think brought a real note of the individual real challenges that parents face to this conversation, and I think it's really important for us to not lose sight of the real challenges that individuals are facing when we say the words distance learning. That means some really specific challenges in many households in our community. I guess I'd like to start with the fact that we need to provide education, and we need to provide it safely. That's the principle behind the governor's order, tying our ability to reopen school to the county's position on watch lists and other factors. It's really been the principle behind all of our planning. I remember a school board meeting in June where we talked about our willingness to do whatever it took to meet the county and state requirements for providing education safely. I guess what I'd first like to ask is for in person, when we get to the point where we can provide special education services in person, I'd like to hear a little bit from staff about what their thoughts are around how to do that safely, whether we're prepared to do it safely, what else we might need in order to do that. And I'm not sure to whom to direct that, but I'm happy to hear the answer.
Sure. So I'm going to ask Cindy Loling Perez to respond to that question.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm dark. My room lighting is not so great, but it's late, so that's okay. So we actually learned a lot from opening in person during ESY. We were so grateful because we work closely with Mike Jacobs, our risk management. We work closely with RD, our maintenance, and transportation as well. So we provided a lot, and then we also have an in-house nurse who was very diligent in letting us know what the guidelines are. So we did follow all the guidelines that was put forth by Department of the Public Health. So we took screening. We screened kids, staff, and then parents too when they came in. So even when Palo Alto Weekly came, we had to screen them as well. So we followed the screening. We had signage. Mike Jacobs helped us with the signage. We also limited our, back in summertime, the limit for our classroom was 12. We limited our classrooms to 8 students per class. And we taped the individual area for the students so that they know that that is their area and they stay there. And then we made sure that it was 6 feet away from each other. We had provided PPE to staff and students. A week ahead of time, we sent an email to parents to ask them to please help us with desensitizing the students wearing masks. And I'm happy to report that 90% of the students came to school wearing masks and kept it on all day long. And then our staff wore face covering, face shield, and gloves. Even when we had to do living, daily living like toileting or helping our students with eating. So those are the measures that we took, and we were very strict in following every guidelines that the Department of Public Health provided for us. Even in transportation, we worked closely with transportation. We met at least 6 times prior to the opening of ESY so that we're well aware of how many kids can we put in a bus, what are the routes, what are the precautions that bus drivers have to do. So we learned a lot, and one of the plans we are going to do is really survey our parents and our staff, the ones who work during ESY, to get some suggestions on what we can do better. But they did a fabulous job, and I felt personally that our ESY in-person program was successful, and we're using that as a thermometer on how we can successfully open when that comes into play.
Yeah, I'm really pleased to hear that, and it sounds like a really high level of adherence to these public health guidelines and successful adherence. And certainly, as a board member, I want to let you know and let staff know that I'm sure other board members are prepared to do whatever it takes in order to support you in doing that. On the other side of this is a phrase I think I heard Ms. Hendricks say fairly recently, which struck me as school dependence, that there's sort of a continuum of the extent to which students really do require in-person services and contact in order to access their education. And that kind of variation is really the whole idea of an individualized educational program, and it's the kind of individualized program that we want to provide. Can you, what I've heard from parents is that there are students who really cannot access their education in a meaningful way without in-person education. Is that your professional experience as well?
You broke up there a little bit, Mr. Dauber. Can you just repeat the last part of it?
Yeah, the question is, I've heard from parents tonight and elsewhere is that for some students, it's really not possible for them to access their education meaningfully without in-person instruction. And I want to get a sense from staff about whether that meets their professional experience.
Did you want me to answer that, Sharon? Or okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
So our experience is we have certainly students that were able to access our distance learning. Aside from in-person ESY, secondary also provided credit recovery for our students. There were 60 students who were enrolled in that program, and I think about 20% of them actually finished and recovered credits that they missed during the spring. So we certainly have kids, especially in our co-taught classes, that can certainly access the distance learning. But just like we found out during ESY, we do have our population who really does need support during distance learning, and in person would be a better avenue for them.
Yeah, so I mean, listening to all of that, I think we all, many times in the past, and I think this makes sense, we are all doing, when I say we, I mean really you, staff and teachers, are doing their best to provide effective distance learning, but it's not going to be as effective as in-person education, even for typically developing students, much less for students who have various disabilities. And so I don't want us to get too, I think I respect Ms. Steiner a lot, but I think one of the things she said is that she thought we should do as much distance learning as possible. I would say actually we should do as little distance learning as necessary. You know, we all want to get back into a situation where we can be in the classroom. My sense is not that we should have a kind of one-size-fits-all approach to returning to school, that we should really look to, on one side, the needs of students. And I see special education students, and particularly some subset of special education students, as really needing to be in school or to have access to in-person instruction, whether that's in school or not. And on the other side is, you know, the logistics. Can we provide a safe learning environment? And so I don't think the answer to those questions is the same for all students. I think it's probably, from my perspective, the case that we need to bring, for the sake of students, we need to bring special education students back into in-person instruction earlier than other students. I'm confident that we, with enough professional attention and resources, we can make that safe. And that maybe elementary school students and then secondary school students generally. So I don't agree that we should be taking a one-size-fits-all approach to this, and I intend in sort of analyzing our situation going forward to really insisting on both things, that we pay attention to student needs and then we pay attention to staff safety. And I think we can harmonize the two of them. Does that make sense to you as from somebody who's kind of in the trenches?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
I would
Okay,
echo
thank
that.
you. I appreciate that.
Did you want to say something, Ms. Baker?
Oh, I was just saying, I echo what Cindy was saying, and I think we're constantly considering that. You know, I recognize a lot of the families that spoke out tonight. They've been excellent partners in education for their kids. And the kids that are not able to access the distance learning format are forefront on our minds, and we're thinking about them constantly. And I just want to assure those families that we're being as creative as possible, and the major limitations are the ones that, for good reason, are placed upon us from the County Department of Health. You know, it never in my career would I have ever thought those two things would be conflicting with each other, a student's health and access to education. So we 100% are always looking at ways to do what's right by any kid based on what's individually necessary for them.
Thank you. Mr. Jarrop, your hand is up.
Thank you. First of all, thank you to all the parents who spoke and provided those really, really deeply personal anecdotes and stories about how, you know, the current situation has affected your students and will continue to affect your students. I just want to echo one of the last things that Mr. Dauber said. I think Mr. Dauber nicely summed up what I had talked a little bit about last time in terms of what we should look at in balancing, you know, feasibility of returning, the disruption to students versus the need for students to get back in the classroom when we're evaluating returning. And as Mr. Dauber said, it's going to be different for different students. So I just want to echo my support as well for this idea that when we return to classrooms, we shouldn't do it as a one-size-fits-all option. And of the students who will benefit the most from returning sooner and more robustly as soon as we're able, with the very appropriate health considerations and precautions that I think we heard today are being taken, we should do so. And those are the special education students. And even within those students, and there will be a spectrum of students who should be back in person sooner than others. So again, just a really supportive of looking at this in terms of the spectrum of students who should be coming back to school to get those in-person supports sooner rather than later.
Other board member comments? All right, I'll try to briefly wrap up. I definitely agree. I think return to school is not a one-size-fits-all undertaking. The needs that kids have for in-person school are all over the map. There's a very wide spectrum, and we certainly heard from some parents tonight who, told us very clearly that the distance learning that their students have been receiving has not been effective, not because the district isn't trying or isn't doing the things they need to do, or the teachers aren't doing, taking the training and using the tools and spending the time. It's none of those reasons. It's because those kids are not well suited for that style of learning and that modality of learning. And so figuring out our job is to figure out how to create learning environments where they can be successful. And so we need to take that responsibility to heart. I think as Ms. Baker said, schooling has to be both safe and effective. To be one without the other is sort of pointless. So the effective part is defined by our pedagogical processes, and we're good at that. We think we're good at it. The safety is defined by the Department of Public Health. They are the experts. They are the authorities. They are the medical experts who understand our circumstances and what it takes to be safe in Santa Clara County during this pandemic. They wrote the book. And so when people ask, hey, is it safe? The answer, I think, is, well, are we following to the letter with great fidelity the county safety requirements? And if we are, then I think the answer is our public health authorities say that it is safe, and so it is safe. And we would be remiss if it is safe to not provide in-person school to the kids who need it the most. So I hope we can figure out a way to do that. I know teachers and parents, and certainly everybody on the school board feels that way. We're desperate to get kids back in school as soon as it can be as soon as it can be safe. And so it's on us as school leaders, as district leaders, to make sure that we can deliver the kind of protocols, the kind of PPE and self-assessment and distancing, ventilation, all the things that are required, cleaning, all the things that are required to provide a safe learning environment, because that's everybody rightfully demands that. But I think that is within our grasp. I think we have the resources and the will to do that. So if we can do it, then I hope we can get to in-person school, especially for the kids who need it the most. I think all kids benefit from in-person school, but as we heard tonight, there are kids for whom it is absolutely essential. These kids, I think you heard it from a couple of parents, and I know from my own experience with special needs kids, they don't just fail to progress at the level that you'd like. These kids actively regress. Okay, so these are parents. Sorry. These are parents who are sitting with their kids, watching their kids month by month actually regress educationally and behaviorally, emotionally, and they wonder what the future holds. They were already dealt. They were already dealt a tough hand, and they're working on it. But it is such a challenge for them to watch their children sit at home and not be able to make any progress at all, and in fact be behind where they were a year ago, not just educationally, but as people. That's a real challenge, and I hope that we can do everything we can, work together with our teachers and our staff and all of our parents to try to do what we can, especially for the kids who need us the most. So sorry about that. And any other comments before we move on? Dr. Austin, anything to add?
No, I want to thank the parents who shared with us tonight. I thought it was compelling and very much in line with our desire to find a path back to something that works for all students. I want to thank Ms. Hendricks for continuing to do that work to create a path, because there are some things that we need to do on our side as far as the way schools work to make that happen. And yesterday was the county special education webinar with everyone involved with special ed. We were fully represented. Today was a replica of that training with all county superintendents. Nobody likes the position we're in, but we're all in it together at this point. And our hope is to be leaders in this space sooner rather than later. Thank you.
That's great. Well, I can't think of a space I'd rather be a leader in, so thank you. Okay, moving on to item 5B, elementary full distance learning survey. Dr. Austin.
Yeah, I'm going to get us started. In just a minute, Ms. Brown's going to walk us through some key points for our elementary opening, but some high points, and some of this will be replicated. Roughly 250 families committed to the distance learning for the entire year. That's somewhere between 5 and 6% of our elementary families. That allowed us to pull 12 teachers to start the year. So that was a desired outcome, is that we could pre-identify which teachers would be pulled for this service. It also creates some difficulties in staffing, which we knew going in. Like everything else during the closures and the virus time, every decision creates other issues, and this is no exception. We have low class size caps in this district. That's really good. We also have small elementary schools that fit neighborhoods. Also good. Until there's a minor disruption in that balance. And in this case, 200 students and 12 teachers being removed is a disruption in that normal balancing act. So in our case, we went back to the staff, including our principals, and asked them to prioritize for the next round of decisions. And the question was pretty simple. Would you rather have some small number of combination classes, keep your kids in your school, or would we rather combine a couple schools and that could eliminate combination classes? I don't mean the entire schools, but if we took part of a leftover and extra number, 12 kids that didn't fit perfectly in a package in second grade at one school and had another 12 from another that didn't fit perfectly, we could either have two combos, one for each of the school, or we could literally have one teacher and have one pure class, but it would be mixed between schools. So we really had no preference. We just wanted the problem solved. And again, neither solution's perfect, but our school leaders were very clear that they would rather have the combination classes, keep their own kids. So that is the direction that we went. It results in right now five combination classes, with the addition of Barron Park that's going to have 3 additional at the 4-5 level by choice. And they had a team of 3 teachers that wanted to go that route. And we think that's actually kind of exciting to work as a team over at Barron Park. The one thing I want to just highlight, and I've highlighted this many times, but I've got enough experience to know that people are going to forget this until the moment it becomes true. Our bigger issue is not right now. Our bigger issue is not starting classes and having a handful of combos. Our bigger issue is in the future when we eventually return and more families select distance learning. because we allowed for a later decision point, which is great. And I think, again, it fits Palo Alto. I think it's fine. It's just a mathematical fact that at that point, if additional families go in, let's say it's another 5 or 10%, that will mean pulling more teachers, which will absolutely redistribute students, not only students going into the distance only program, but even students that were in the, hope to stay with my teacher in person. Mathematically, there will be some shuffling and balancing that will take place. There's no way to avoid it because of the choices that we've made. Each choice has a consequence. Not all are the desired pieces, but it's just a reality. We're going to work through that at a later date. We won't have an answer for that right now because you can't predict it. All you can predict is that it's a problem we're going to have to solve. Resilience is going to be important, and families and teachers should expect a strong possibility of changes. For some families that have moved around a lot, you'll be surprised at the resilience of your kids. For others, it'll be something we're going to have to deal with, and we'll help you with that. But I just want to make sure that I'm going to keep repeating that, so as we get closer to the return, it's not a surprise. But I am going to turn it over now to Ms. Brown to walk us through some of the important parts of where we're at. So, Ann Brown.
Great, thank you, Dr. Austin. So our full distance learning program has been staffed, and they are working hard on getting ready for the start of the year. We have 2 classes per grade level, staffed with experienced and innovative teachers from across the districts. The teachers are ready to provide an engaging and rigorous academic and social emotional learning program. Nicole Manu is the point person for the program, and she has heard from many parents that the top priority for their children who are doing full distance all year is that they keep a connection with their home school. So I just want to share with you that it is also our priority to keep that connection for students. So some of the things that we are doing for the full distance learning classrooms at this time is that students have been placed in home elementary site clusters within a grade level. And where possible, teachers have some of their class is from their home school. At every school, Nicole will, or like every school in the district, Nicole Manu will be sending out weekly communications about the program to parents with links to their home school so that they can keep up on what's happening at the school and stay engaged there. We are also going to be working with PTAC to establish PTA connections between the full distance learning program and the site PTAs. And I think all of these things will things that we will be able to do as more people enter the program after we go to hybrid. So the staff is excited and eager to get started with their students and get the year started. So I'm really excited about that. And if you looked at the attachment, in general, we had basically every grade had similar amounts of numbers. 3rd grade was a little bit higher than the rest, and students came from all over the district. So it's a good program. We're getting started, and we're anxious to continue. I also want to share one more thing, very important that I forgot, was that students will be receiving services such as counseling, English language, family engagement specialists, 504 and IEP services from their home school. So just like you heard earlier, that the teachers were going to be getting an IEP at a glance from their special ed teachers, so will the full distance learning teachers. So we're starting with 12 classrooms. If we go to hybrid, we expect that to grow, and we are ready and excited to get going. That's all.
That's all we have. So Mr. Collins.
Yeah, sorry, I am here.
Okay.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board? If anybody from the community wants to speak, now's the time to press *9 or raise your hand. And board members the same. Oh, it looks like we do have a community comment. So why don't we take that first, and we can then come to board members if there are any. Looks like Nicole. Nicole, please go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Hey, so I'm responding to something that was mentioned prior to regarding the 504 and the case manager.
Nicole, I'm sorry. We can really only take comment on the item that we're.
Oh,
Yeah, my apologies.
I
What
am
you
not
can't-
following.
Yeah, my apologies. What you can do is email your comments to us
Okay.
at board@pausd.org.
Sounds good.
All right,
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so any board member? I see Ms. Bacon-Caswell has her hand up. Why don't you go ahead, Melissa? You're on mute.
I just want to thank Ms. Brown for connecting with the PTA on this. I think for some families, the connection with their school community is really, really such a big deal that this is what they were most worried about. So thank you for doing that. And, you know, I want to thank the PTAs for stepping up here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. DeBrienza?
Thanks. I appreciate the sort of detail that I think most of the community has really been waiting for and anxious about. And now we've got the surveys in and we're, you know, down to the week that it's all happening. So I appreciate I think the community appreciates the details coming out. Just one question that I know some parents have expressed some concern about is if you choose full distance learning for the whole year. I saw in one email that parents were invited to, or families were invited to sign up for their homeschool e-news so they could stay up to date on what's going on there. So two questions. One, if I am full distance learning, if my second graders full distance learning for the whole year, next year when they go to third grade, they are back at, say, Fairmeadow, if that's their homeschool, they're back at their
Yes.
homeschool. And
Yes.
thank you. And then if my fifth grader is remote all year, distance learning all year, and is at Fairmeadow, when it comes time to graduation, right, or whatever it is, promotion, thank you. I'm assuming that because they're on e-news, they'll just know what's going on and hopefully they'll be welcomed in by their PTAs.
Definitely.
Okay, so I think that's sort of a concern. Are you going to promote away from your own school? But it sounds like maybe there's a way to do both, or we'll work with that.
Yeah, we're definitely going to keep connected. And Nicole, who's the point person, will be attending principal meetings, and she will be able to hear what's going on at all the schools as well and be able to communicate that out in her Wednesday newsletters.
Great, that's wonderful. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
And Ms. DeBrienza, if I can clarify what the nomenclature correction that Dr. Austin did to me earlier today. We don't want to say homeschool because
something else.
Well, A, it's something else, but B, it's like if you're a member of a choice school, you're not returning back to the school in your original attendance area. You're returning to the school that you were previously assigned to. Is that right, Ms. Brown? Am I saying it the right way?
Exactly right. Thank you.
Okay, so the school you were assigned to in the before time.
Yes.
In the before time.
Yeah, I love that little turn of phrase, and I'm going to use that myself. So that's great.
A little creepy, but yes.
It's got a science fiction mystical thing going on. Any other comments or questions on this? Okay, then, and Dr. Austin, anything else to add before we move on?
No, I think for something that we hadn't even really thought about months ago, this went about as smooth as it could have gone, and really thankful that teachers volunteered, put their hands up. Super excited for Nicole to run and coordinate this. And you met earlier today, Blanca Herrera, who's going to be just vital as far as moving this work forward. So we're well positioned.
Great. All right, then moving on to item 5C, which is PAUSD plus student support programs. Dr. Austin.
I know this item has received some attention, and it's well-placed attention. And I'd like to thank Ms. Conway, our Assistant Superintendent of Equity and Student Affairs, for her work, but you're also going to meet some of her partners tonight. They're going to walk through pieces of this. So I'm going to just go ahead and turn it right over to Ms. Conway to lead us through.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Austin, and good evening, everyone. Tonight is a brief report about PAUSD Plus, and I want to focus on highlighting some of the opportunities that we are exploring, and also, of course, some of the limitations that we're facing as we move through the process. I wanted to start by saying that we recognize that many students will need support during this crisis, regardless of race or income or disability status. And our team of teachers, counselors, and administrators are the first line of defense for all of our students, and they will be responding to those needs as they do during the regular school year, just in a somewhat different format. However, we also recognize that there are some students and families that need us to do more, and PAUSD Plus is designed for those families. We have developed two models, one PAUSD Plus Student Support Center and the PAUSD Virtual Support Program. Both were addressed to address the barriers to learning. But obviously the advantage of having the PAUSD Student Support Center was that we would have students on campus in a quiet and learning focused environment. As you know, that there are challenges with students coming on campus, so we quickly had to turn our attention to our virtual support program. And our attempt was to try to build as robust a program as what we had originally designed for our PAUSD Student Support Center. What you will hear tonight is a summary of what that process looks like and what steps are going to be taken. But more importantly, I want you to hear a little bit about some of the partnerships we've been able to form and strengthen as we move in the process. You'll meet one tonight. But we've also been in conversations with organizations like Dreamcatchers and EPAT. And tonight you'll hear from College Track about how we're going to be supporting students at all levels. And what you will learn from that is that we're not just taking a deficit approach as we approach the needs of students. We have students who are highly capable of achieving at a high level, and our support systems are going to be there to help those students achieve. So I do not want anyone to get the impression that PAUSD Plus is a charity program. It is not. It is a program, though, that recognizes that some students need us more to get to know where we know they can be. So our top priority is to identify those students. And secondly, and more importantly, is to make sure that they have a watchful eye as they move into distance learning, and that they're not reaching any barriers or coming up against barriers that are difficult for them to manage. So I want to give you an opportunity to hear from Mr. Ochoa. His name is Jorge Ochoa, and his team. I believe he's here with someone else. So I also want to share that part of our program about building our leadership capacity with our students is in progress also. We have Dr. Judy Argumedo, who's been designing leadership opportunities for students of color. And you will hear hopefully at another board meeting about the Student Equity Alliance. And that's just one other layer where we're getting students involved and working on core projects and initiatives together so that they're demonstrating their leadership quality. So if Mr. Ochoa is on board, we will get him on to just talk a little bit about our partnership and what we hope to accomplish.
Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's doing really well. I positioned myself in front of the window when the sun was out, and so I look really beautiful now with the sun behind me. You know, it doesn't look as nice, but it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I want to, I think, first highlight a piece that Ms. Conaway shared, which is for College Track, who's been a staple of the East Palo Alto community since '97. We anchor on strength-based. We anchor on seeing our students and their background and their skill set as a strength, right, rather than deficit. And I think it's really important that we look at it that way, that we support them in that way. I am a product of that. I'm a product of my background as a first-gen person of color immigrating here from Mexico. It was because of a program like College Track that allowed me to be the type of leader that I am today. And so College Track offers that for our community and for our students. As I mentioned, we've been here since '97. I have not been here since then, but it has been at the crux of really supporting a lot of our East Palo Alto community and their students in attaining a four-year college degree. And so what we really offer is almost a approach, 4 pillars. One, it's academic support, and we do that via one-to-one coaching, academic, math intervention, English intervention, ACT prep. We also have a student life approach, and I would think about it as an enrichment opportunity. So we talk about gender identity, identity affirming spaces, navigating first year in college. We then have a college completion component that really supporting them in the college application process, financial aid process. And then we have our wellness component. And what that really anchors on is providing that one-to-one support socially, emotionally. So think about it as a school counselor or therapist that we have. And so they meet with our students one-to-one. So all of that to encompass really an approach of ensuring that our students and their families are able to access that college degree, right? They're able to access that support. They're able to have a pathway that's been built by them, but already laid out for them by other individuals that have done that and that have really navigated that space. So we're deeply excited. We have students from Palo Alto High School that have been a part of our programming for the past few years. And one of the pieces that I am bringing on as a new site director over the past year is to really strengthen our partnership, to really think through how do we support those students to ideate, navigate, and create together in a way that also supports our parents and is there for them and is there for our community. I cannot thank enough everything that you all do. I can imagine how difficult it is to navigate the space post-COVID. As a previous principal myself in the East Coast, it is challenging as it is, and now it adds a whole different layer. And so, again, I am excited to be here. I'm excited to be connected to you all and think of the possibilities. So thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me to present.
Great. Thank you so much, Jorge. We appreciate you as well. I'm now going to turn it over to Miguel Fatoria, our coordinator of student and family engagement, to just run briefly through the process and what families can expect to see as part of the program. Miguel?
Great. Thank you, Lana. I'm going to go ahead and just share this screen and see if we can go ahead and get this presentation live. And hopefully you guys can all see that. Excellent. So as we move into our opening next Monday, we do reflect a little bit on what we kind of went through on this last year in our springtime and how our families faced a lot of challenges. I think plenty of the families that have spoken today resonate with a lot of the challenges that we found in our families here in our district. But we know that some of our families already faced challenges during a regular school year. Many of our families were already facing hardships, plenty of issues that just made schooling and learning even more difficult for them. But when the schools closed and the pandemic really hit, a lot of those families and their challenges were just exacerbated. And so we saw a lot of student disengagement. We saw a lack of student engagement in the online learning platforms. Many weren't logging into their Schoology, not completing homework or sitting in with teachers. We also noticed that a lot of those issues really did have to do with technology and internet. Families did not have enough to afford for internet access. Getting reliable internet for 3 or 4 students to all log on to Zooms at various times of the day made it a little bit difficult, more slowly responding internet access, but also academic supports in the home, a little bit less available if you're just at home learning, relying on your parent to both parent you as well as teach and educate you alongside the teachers. We know that in-person tutoring and access to homework centers is limited at that point. Parent knowledge on the use of distance learning tools. We spent a lot of time with our families working through Schoology, how to logging onto computers. And then just the base idea of socialization between students was something that we saw. So knowing that these times were so challenging for our families, we know now more than ever that we truly do need to bring some of our students onto campuses where they can be surrounded by caring adults and making sure that they're receiving the best education possible, as many of the conversations we've already had today in the board meeting. Our PAUSD Plus Student Support Center would focus on an on-site model initially. This is obviously our dream. As we're still waiting on some final approvals for some things, we do want to make sure, though, that if we do get that approval, we're ready to go with an on-site model for our students. So we would start with small groups of students at our sites, just to make sure that we can actually work with all the students and create that really meaningful one-on-one interaction. We would be varying the criteria for student eligibility. We want to make sure that people understand this isn't just a single factor that's going to determine eligibility of a student into these programs. Rather, it's individualized, it's site by site, it's truly identifying students and families who are in our highest need, who can benefit from a program such as this and opening the doors to those students and families. It's built to provide some of those really basic foundational needs, a safe and quiet space for our students to be able to actually receive some additional supports, sometimes even just being a little bit of internet access that's reliable. Sometimes it's just being able to plug in their laptop to charge, or maybe it is because of that supervision by caring adults that are able to actually support that distance learning and helping them to log into their online platforms, log into Zoom, Schoology, keep up with their calendars, or just stay on top of their work and in their classrooms. Now, in our sites and in our spaces here, as we've thought about our student support centers, we really have our 4-step model here. It tries to just simplify it down a little bit, just to make sure that we're not trying to do too much either with our students. We want to know that these students are supported, but we want to do it in an effective manner. So in step 1, we really want to identify this, just make sure that they're going through this. We want to make sure we're selecting the right students, bring those students onto site, evaluate the needs as they're there, making sure that we are supporting them where needed. Programs like College Track can help us do that, and then review goals and report on student success as we finish that up. Now, we do make sure that our students are receiving the basic supports as they enter our student support program, and then they'd be moving through as we identified students who might need more support than that basic foundational support that we offered all of our students coming onto that space. We'd embed those available supports where possible into those spaces as we possibly could, being the staff and teachers, making sure that those are being done. So we're making sure right now that we're working on our staffing model and our plans. We'd make sure that students would be fed breakfast and lunch. We've worked with food and nutrition to make sure that that is feasible as well. And then obviously working through our health and safety screenings on the site to make sure that this is an appropriate place for students. However, we do know that most likely we are going to have to do a virtual support program, regardless of whether on-site or not. We do want to make sure that we have a robust virtual support program for our students. The distance model would give us the opportunity to work with more students instead of the limited capacity that we'd be able to do on-site. We'd still have that varying eligibility, but we'd be able to still provide consistent check-ins through coaching and mentoring, through trained one-on-one coaches for our students, working on simple things like planning, organization, follow-through, or just giving them that morning call in the morning to make sure that they actually log into that first period class. Now, same thing, we really want to look at the recruitment strategies that we have, making sure our students and our families have access to everything they need to actually learn, everything from technology to materials for the classroom. We make sure that we have effective and high-level coaching that's doing weekly check-ins, if not daily check-ins with some of our students, build in the additional supports through other support programs, and finally have a consistent weekly report that feeds into the consistent feedback cycle through coaching and additional support. We know that at the end of the day, this one-on-one coaching, our strategies for organization, time management, weekly communications with families will be important. There is potential for small group sessions with coaches as well of the online, and then access to online tutoring and academic supports where needed. So essentially, it's trying to embed within everything we possibly can, all the supports that do exist here currently within our district, and provide them in a very available manner to our students and our families, ensuring that they have what they need to succeed in the virtual setting. And as we figure out what more they need, which I'm sure will be more than we expected, this team will be able to support those students and families across our K-12 students.
Thank you, Miguel. I appreciate that. As we move forward, some of the work that we are currently doing right now is trying to identify some additional support staff that can help the cause. Certainly, we have a dedicated team of SAFE specialists, but we realized very quickly in spring 2020 that it was a very small team spread across some pretty significant support needs. So we have our deputy superintendent who's also looking at staff to determine if there's any other opportunities to increase the support. That being said, we also have a ton of volunteers in the wings waiting to support us in any way that we need. So we feel like we can do a much more robust job than what we started in spring 2020. That's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. I don't see any hands raised, but if any community members, oh, there goes one. If a community member wants to comment on this, now is the time to raise your hand, either in Zoom or if you're dialed in, you can press *9. And I'll wait just a beat to see what the numbers look like, and then we can take community comment. Okay, I see 4 hands up, so it looks like we'll be 3 minutes each. And if we can start with, I gotta get over there. The cryptically named CSEA 301, which I believe is Meb Steiner, followed by Nellie Gomez, followed by Carrie Flores. Meb, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Yes, this is Meb Steiner, president of CSEA. This is really exciting and a wonderful program to hear about. I think that it is an incredible opportunity for us to offer more of the supports that we do have and really get them to families and students that need them. I really welcome the opportunity to try and sort of expand this model to all of our classified staff. I think we have some connections that classified staff have to students and families that are very unique, and utilizing options, you know, whether it's our bus drivers reaching out because they know the families where they pick them up and they know the students when they drive them, or using some of our aides who've, you know, built up very personal connections with our students and their families, and sort of expanding and embedding our SAFES model and the ideas we have of equity and inclusion, and really appreciating our students for who they are and valuing them as whole human beings is so important. So I appreciate the approach. I think this is just a wonderful program, and I really look forward to trying to include as many folks from our staff as possible to support this. I think it will benefit all of our students in the long run, and certainly in the short term now, our families and students who've been particularly hard hit by the impacts of distance learning and pandemic and economic concerns and mental health and all of those issues. So I'm excited about this, and just want to say that I really value the wing of volunteers, but I do encourage our district to really think about utilizing and leveraging the staff we have to use this as an opportunity for innovation and expansion of the model, and really embedding it throughout our district. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, Nalali Gomez, followed by Carrie Flores, and then Sarah Woodham Johnson.
Hi, this is Nayeli Gomez. First of all, I want to just say thank you to all of you, to all of the members of the board, for all the hard work you have been doing. These are unprecedented times, and we understand that it's so hard to take some decisions. And I want also like to express my gratitude to all the family engagement specialists that participate in PAUSD. I'm a mom. I have two kids, one raising a second grader and another one 8th grader at JLS. I'm part of the site council at El Carmelo and JLS, and I'm part also of the PTA, the district of the PTA, and part of the PAUSD engagement committee now. And I really think that we need to support a little bit more family engagement specialists. We really need more people we need more people to be like more involved with this. We have like so many people that really needs our help in not only on translations, Spanish translations, but some other things like technology. So there's a bunch of vulnerable people that we have in the district that is just kind of like lost with this pandemic, and they are not like really they don't know like they don't have the knowledge of the technology. They just feel like kind of lost, and we need to engage with them, not only with the parents, but also with the kids. So we really need that sense of belonging. And I really think that we can achieve that through the family engagement specialists. We have had like a lot of support from them since the very beginning, but we really think that they really need more support because they cannot do everything. They are, oh my gosh, they're really great people. We really have really good people at PAUSD, but it's just too much that they can actually not attend like all the calls or everything that we need to tackle. So I just want to say that we really need more resources. We really need to get more people involved. We really need more translations, not only in Spanish, but Mandarin and some other languages. And just to finalize, I thank you again to the family engagement specialists and all the team behind that, and all of you for your commitment to the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie Flores, and then the last will be Sarah Woodham Johnson.
Yes, thank you. This is Carrie. I'm the parent of an incoming kindergartner, so I'm not as familiar with all the ins and outs of Palo Alto USD, but I do work in partnership with some families throughout the K-5 program. And on the website, I've been looking into the PAUSD Plus program for some of them, but it looks like it's only available to 6th through 12th graders, but I'm aware of some elementary students who could really benefit from having a safe, quiet space in which to work because they don't necessarily have that outside of the school setting. And I was wondering if this, I was hoping to hear a little bit more about how this might be expanded to elementary students and how families might access it if they haven't before, if they're not already in the program. So I don't know if you can speak to that. If you could, that would be great. Or if you could point me to where I could find more information. Thank you.
Ms. Conway, do you want to just speak to that quickly?
Yes, I do, because that's an important one. We have expanded the program K through 12, even when we were considering the in-person option on campus. We were already in talks with principals about designing a program fit for every single site. So we are prepared to move when that time comes, and our site principals and their teams are working on specific plans for their buildings.
Great, thank you. And the last speaker will be Sarah Wooden-Johnson.
Sorry. Oh, hi, good evening. I just wanted to sort of jump in here and thank Lana and her team for all the work that's being done to, to support these, these families who have the most basic needs that just aren't being met through our shelter in place and, and just will continue to not be truly met for circumstances beyond their control, in the distance learning model. Thank you to MEB for, echoing the support for this program. I mean, I think that this is something that's truly needed. And I am truly grateful for, Lana, Miguel, all the folks who have been working and trying to, build and forge partnerships to get the help to the students and the families who need who need all the help in any form that we can give it to them. It's very difficult. I mean, it was wrenching to sort of to listen to some of the stories of the families of kids with special needs, and I found it myself also wrenching because I know that as when we closed, there were hundreds of families in the spring, for example, who needed the most basic support, food, gas. And these students, and many of these students are in a place where they just cannot access education, in the way that many other kids can. And, all I ask is that we live our promise, for equity, that we leave no stone unturned, and that we, fund as necessary and accordingly to the dire needs of these children to make sure that they get the support in the form that they need before we lose them for good. And that is my greatest fear, that when we sort of unravel the carnage of what, that is COVID, that we will realize that we have lost a particular subset of kids for good. And, and I just, this isn't a sexy topic, but I want us to make sure, and I just implore you to prioritize and value the need for educating these students in a way that they can access it, and using whatever means necessary to sort of get that done as best as we can under these extremely difficult circumstances. And I appreciate the work and effort so far, and I just encourage it. Thanks.
Thank you for all those comments. And now we'll move to board member questions and comments. Mr. Brienza.
Okay, that was the first one with my hand up. The reason I put it up was just to clarify that PAUSD Plus is K-12, right? And so Ms. Conway answered that. Thank you. Just a few more questions. One, you spoke earlier, and so did one of our speakers, about sort of these partnerships with other organizations out there from FCE, College Track, EPAT, Dreamcatchers. Can you speak a little bit about what our relationship with them is right now? And if we have been able to discern what role they played in the spring for the students that they are already connected with. I know some of those organizations have very tight connections with families and maybe we're better able to reach and support students than we were. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. I will tell you that this kind of vision for strengthening the partnerships came from the work that I saw Dreamcatchers doing. I received a report about the work, and I got a chance to hear some feedback from the families during that time. They did some amazing things. So what that looked like to me was an opportunity to partner because we have the same vision, the same goals, and we have students who have share the same needs. So my negotiations, as we were talking to Janaki and her team, was to say, how can we expand this, get more students in, making sure that we're identifying them and the missions are similar. And that's an additional layer of support. So while we may not be able to support fully to the greatest extent, 550 kids, if we partner with other organizations and we parse some of that out, we now have a watchful eye, and those partner organizations can report back to us, I'm working with this family. Here are the needs that I've identified. How can we work together to support or find resources to support the family? So I believe that the more organizations like that share the same mission that we have, we can spread our resources in a way that it's not spread so thin that our impact is minimized.
Great. Yeah, I think I love this PAUSD Plus plan, and I hope that we are able to execute it in person to some extent very soon. But for those families that we don't already have a connection with, if one of these outside partner organizations already has a connection, that seems like an obvious thing to capitalize on. And Dr. Austin, I think that if we're finding that those organizations have found success and are able to support us more explicitly or take on more students, I think that would be money well spent, because clearly if those relationships are already there, that's going to be an easier connection to make. So I encourage you to really look at those opportunities because it'll put less pressure on PAUSD Plus if there are some connections that already exist outside. And the other question may just be for Ms. Ofek, but when obviously we have our eyes on some students that maybe didn't find much success this spring, or as Ms. Woodham mentioned, kids who are really struggling just to make ends meet or have a quiet place to work. But as the semester goes on, say I'm a secondary teacher and I've got, my whole load of kids that I have, if I'm a teacher and I'm noticing that a student maybe, it's a new year, right? So a teacher in the spring was able to notice if a student that typically had been really engaged now isn't engaged, or that always handed in things, wasn't handing in things, but now their teachers meeting new students. And so they don't really know what their practices were before. So I hope that if any student isn't really engaging and clearly showing progress, that the teacher is going to reach out and try to connect. But do we have a systematized way that a teacher knows if I'm having trouble connecting to these 7 students out of my 140 or whatever, there's this thing I do. I report up to my principal or guidance counselor. Is there a system in place for that yet that's been communicated?
So let me share. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just gonna add in that, Ms. DiBrienzo, this morning and yesterday morning, we kicked off our professional learning for our elementary and secondary teachers with a high-level overview of SB 98 and all of the expectations that are held for our school district in terms of accountability for high-quality, rigorous, daily live instruction. And one of those pieces is the idea that if a student is absent from class, attendance matters, attendance is being taken. If a student is absent from class, it is our obligation to find out why. If it's tech related, report up so that we can resolve the problem. If it's something else related, report to the correct people. So we're working on all levels to have a system that works for us. Several schools have systems from last year that did work that they'll continue to use, and others will refine their systems. It's all connected back to the administrators. and the teams they have in place there. So that, I think that's the question you were asking me. Ms. Conway certainly can contribute more, but.
Yes, I was going to add that, all of our principals and the teachers are connected to our specialists. So even though our specialists are not necessarily the individuals to solve the issue, they are the ones to connect to the various resources. So over in the spring 2020, we received reports of students who did not do well. Some of them went and knocked on doors, as I reported last time. We will continue that and hopefully have some additional support to do that in a more robust way as we move forward.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay, Mr. Darab.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And, I think our special education strategy and our strategy for PAUSD Plus, to me, are the areas of the utmost importance when considering how to get students back in with people who can support them. And so the question and the distance strategies that you laid out look great, as great as they can be given the circumstances and necessary. But on that continuum that I discussed earlier of when certain students should be coming back sooner rather than later, what is our approach right now to bringing students back physically? And I know what the plan is, but in terms of timeline, and given the governor's orders, and I know there's some discussion about whether PAUSD Plus's center might operate under the child care center rules versus the school rules. What are we thinking about in terms of timing?
Well, I would say for us, we're ready to go when we get the go ahead. So we will be prepared to make that first move, as soon as we can. I can't predict the timing. Obviously, there are lots of parameters around that. So I am just waiting and still hopeful that we are going to be able to do it. I wish I had more answers for sure.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll just one more time echo. These are students who we're serving, who we really need to focus on getting in-person support to as soon as possible. For all the reasons that I said earlier when we were talking about our special education students, they apply equally here. So thank you again for your work, and thank you for the speakers, because this is, as Ms. DiBrienzo likes to say, this is the work.
Yes.
Ms. Bittinghausen.
So first of all, thank you. Thank you. This is, every time I hear about PAUSD Plus, it's more robust. The part about the partners, I think, is key. And they're partners in East Palo Alto. They're providing childcare, like the Boys and Girls Club. And I'm wondering, I don't know what their situation is right now. Maybe they aren't providing any right now. But as these groups provide childcare, can those be partners for us for Quiet Place to Work? This, over the years, this has been one of the biggest issues. Once you get the basic Maslow's hierarchy of needs and safety and food, the Quiet Place to Work seems to be more important than anything else. And I know I brought up at one meeting, can we get these kids headphones, noise canceling headphones, so if they're stuck in a house with a ton of people, they can be quiet somewhere. But really, being separate is probably, or at least having some space is probably as important. So Ms. Conway, have you had any conversations with any of the providers in East Palo Alto that might be providing some childcare? And is there any opportunity for us to have some, until we can open and actually have our PAUSD Plus students on campus, have them in a situation where they get some quiet time?
I am willing to explore every opportunity that's out there. I've been beating the pavement to identify the resources in the community to see if we can partner. So I've probably made a dozen calls already, and thankfully some of our partners that are already have their foot in the door were the first to answer the call. But continuing forward, I think part of our work is about how do we identify additional partnerships that can help advance the work. So certainly that's a consideration. for us to move
Now,
forward.
if there's some partners that we know about and we should send them your way, and you probably have already talked to them, but just in case.
Probably have.
Just in case.
Yes, for sure.
Right.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I think this says a lot. And as to our family engagement specialists, I guess those kind of resources, people always need more, right? There's never enough. And so the question is, how do you allocate? Do you allocate for whole families, or do you allocate by grade level, or do you allocate by school? How are we doing that right now? What's our method of allocation?
Right. So there's an individual assigned, a specialist assigned to each school site. Some of those individuals do have multiple sites. So part of our work, and Meb mentioned this when she spoke earlier about leveraging the work of classified staff. That's exactly what we're talking about, is how do we use reassignments, and for those people willing to come in and do that work. And even for those who want to stay virtual, how can we use the additional supports? We even talked about bus drivers, dropping off meals and dropping off kids and hanging around to do some supervision. So we are exploring every option to use our staff in a meaningful way. But certainly our dedicated staff is a small staff. So we have to be very strategic about how we assign them to students.
The bus drivers, and as you know, we have many bus drivers working for us that live in East Palo Alto. So, anyone who is working for us that lives in those communities has tentacles we can't come up with.
Right.
So I think that's a marvelous idea.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That is it for board member question and comments, unless anyone else. Okay, Dr. Austin, Ms. Conaway, anything to wrap up on this?
That's it for me.
No, I think this work has evolved nicely, and what I'll ask is for a little patience as we get started. I think the trap here is to expand too quickly and to start saying and what abouts. I think there's going to be a time for that, but I'd really like to protect PAUSD Plus and get it started small, and in a way that we can really wrap our arms around it, and then grow from there. So excited for the work that's been done. It's good, smart work, and think it's going to be a real value add versus this time, well, in the spring of last year.
Great, thank you. Thank you to everybody for that presentation. All right, our next two items we'll treat as, I'm told by staff, we can treat as a single item. So items D and E, which are the tentative agreements respectively with PAEA and CSEA. Dr. Austin.
I'm only going to lead off and say that you're seeing these tonight, and then they'll come back for action. Essentially, these are both agreements that have been reached between the district and PAEA and CSEA separately. They're separate units. All three will need to be ratified, meaning that all three groups. So our group will ratify the agreement at the next meeting, just meaning that you accept it. That's the technical way of doing it for CSEA and PAEA. And then each of the two units will also have a ratification vote. Beyond that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Hendricks real quick to see if she has something to add.
Thank you, Dr. Austin. I think you did a great job in explaining the next steps in the process. What I'd like to do is extend a note of appreciation to both bargaining units. So PAEA President Terry Baldwin and lead negotiator Mimi Park and their entire team. And it was a large team involved in these conversations because they are complex and important conversations and issues to talk about. And CSEA President Meb Steiner and her team as well. So just want to thank them for the time at the table and the conversations that we were able to engage in together. As you'll see, there are two tentative agreements for PAEA for reopening schools in a COVID-19 environment. One is for secondary schools, the other is for elementary schools. We will be bringing some topics back to the table. We were in agreement that we didn't have full agreement on some pieces, so we carved those out. CSEA has one tentative agreement. All of these have been posted on our negotiations updates on our website. So they have been public documents since they were tentatively agreed upon respectively on August 5th and August 6th. So that is really kind of the background of the documents. As Dr. Austin said, they will come back to you on August 25th for board approval, and they are pending ratification by the bargaining units.
Great. So Dr. Austin, is that it? Okay, so we can take community comments and just as Ms. Hendricks queued them up, we have Ms. Terry Baldwin and Ms. Meb Steiner. So each will get 3 minutes. Terry, you want to go first?
Sure, that'd be great. I also just want to extend my thanks to the district for our long negotiations. We started this in May, so it was a long time coming and a lot of work. I'd like to thank both of my exec board and negotiations team as we have worked all summer long, pretty much full time, trying to get all this done. So it's been tough, and we're still not done yet, as Ms. Hendricks noted, that we have some things we agreed we don't agree on, and we'll keep discussing and try to reach an agreement as soon as possible. So, and our ratification vote is happening as we speak, and we should know in about a day or so. So thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you. All right. And now CSEA 301, which I expect will be Ms. Steiner again.
Yes, good evening. Meb Steiner again. I too want to express my thanks to Ms. Hendricks and the district's negotiating team, and thank our executive board and our negotiations team as well. It was a lot of work, a lot of things to think about, and guidelines to research and consider and contemplate. How does one create a document that is clear and usable and addresses the complexity of the times we live in? I think we were able to identify some very good shared interests, which guided our negotiations, and then the the final version that we were able to come to, as we tried to balance addressing the educational needs of our students, the vast array of jobs that classified staff do, and the many different supports classified staff provide to our students and schools, and balance that with safety. Our goal is really to reopen. We're talking about a reopening in COVID-19. We are opening distance learning, but we are open, and classified staff has been working since the school closures and started with our 12-month employees. I really, I just kind of want to emphasize how important that safety piece is, and how important it is for us to recognize where we are currently, and how vital it is that all of us do everything we can to keep ourselves and our loved ones safe. And by doing that, we keep our entire community safe. Because if we can responsibly follow all of these public health guidelines now, work remotely if you can, avoid contacts, minimize contacts, all the hygiene protocols, that is what is going to allow us to come back to an actual reopening of seeing the smiling faces of our students in person. So I just want to express my thanks, and I'm very, very glad we were able to come to this agreement. And we are going through our ratification process, and we look forward to the board approval at the next board meeting. Thank you. Thank you to everyone, and for all the work, not only on the MOU, but just all the work that is going into us trying to get our schools ready to reopen in person, and currently ready to reopen with distance learning. Thank you. Thank you all much.
Thank you. Thank you, Meb and Terry. Any board member comments or questions on the two tentative agreements? All right, seeing those raised hands, Dr. Austin is going to come back for action next time. Ms. Hendricks?
Correct, August 25th.
Great, at our next scheduled meeting.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our agenda. Our next meeting is our first, as Ms. Hendricks just mentioned, our first so-called regular meeting. Our prior scheduled meeting is 2 weeks from now on August 25th. And so I look forward to seeing you all there. And I do want to just say, I mean, we did, you know, this was kind of a heavy meeting. It was emotional. We discussed some difficult topics. We heard about how people are struggling, but let's not lose sight. You know, next Monday is the first day of school for 12,000 kids. And that's a great thing. That's kids showing up to learn, looking forward to the next great year of their life with their teachers, with their classmates. And I think I know I'm very excited about it. I imagine everybody on this call is very excited. And I know our staff members and teachers and classified staff are all super excited to do what we can to do what we do to support the kids. So I'm looking forward to that. And thank you for everybody who made that possible. All right, with that concludes our agenda and we're adjourned.